After my dad's funeral, when everyone was talking about who gets what from his money and stocks, my brother-in-law, who's married to my sister Kelly, suddenly said that all of it, including $5 million, should go to Kelly, the oldest sibling. My sister and brother-in-law were happy, but the lawyer told them they couldn't just decide that. My name's John Watson. I'm 42, work in sales, and have a wife and 2 kids. My dad owned a big part of a company, and even though he was old, he still worked. My sister Kelly, who's older than me, has always been a bit of a problem for our parents with her bad behavior. My sister, who's now in her middle years, still doesn't have a steady job and just lives her life however she wants. I've never really liked her, so I've always kept my distance. Then, when she turned 50, out of the blue, she brings home this guy and says, "I'm getting married." The guy, Chris Adams, is younger and good-looking, but he's pretty lazy and not very pleasant. My sister starts asking Dad for money for the wedding like it's no big deal. She blows through the cash real quick and then has the nerve to ask for more, which really upsets Dad. She figures she'll inherit everything eventually, so why not? I just watch her with a cold stare. Less than a year after she gets married, Dad has a heart attack while playing golf and passes away a few days later. It hits me hard, and I feel really sad. The sudden news of Dad's passing shocked all his friends, and our phones wouldn't stop ringing with condolences. But I couldn't just sit there and cry. I took charge, helping my stunned mom with all the arrangements for the funeral. As usual, my sister was nowhere to be found, off doing her own thing. After the funeral, utterly exhausted, Mom and I finally got a chance to catch our breath. But the very next day, a lawyer showed up at our door to talk about Dad's will. Mom and I already knew what was in it, but my sister and her husband barged in, clueless about the whole thing, and dropped a bombshell. All of Dad's stocks and the $5 million inheritance will go to my wife, the oldest daughter. So, hands off. Mom and I were speechless at their audacity. "We did it, Kelly. Now we're set for life," cheered my brother-in-law, fist pumping with joy. The lawyer, clearly surprised, spoke up, "Hold on a minute." As my sister glared, the lawyer gave them a stern look and said, "Kelly, you're not entitled to any inheritance." My sister and her husband were stunned, protesting, "That can't be right. Kelly's the oldest daughter, she should get everything." It was clear my brother-in-law had been banking on that inheritance, assuming my sister would get it all. Their expressions shifted as the lawyer spoke softly. "Did you not know? Kelly is not Mr. Watson's biological child." Suddenly, my sister's face paled, her eyes darting to our mother. "Mom?" Our mother wore a complex expression. While I had always known my sister was a half-sibling, it seemed she had been kept in the dark. She began shaking our mother, almost frantic. "Mom, what does this mean?" "Kelly, you're from my previous marriage," our mother muttered, shaken by my sister's grip. My sister, who had often teased me about being the favorite child, now wore a stunned expression. "But if she was legally adopted, she should still have inheritance rights," my brother-in-law interjected, his voice rising. "Isn't that so, Kelly?" "Yes, that's what I thought," my sister replied, but our mother shook her head. There had been no legal adoption. Both my sister and brother-in-law seemed incredulous. "That can't be. I'm the oldest daughter. Even Dad said so." My sister's anger turned towards me. "I won't let you take everything," she snapped, to which I responded, irritated by her entitlement. "After all the support Dad gave you, you still say that. Be quiet." "I'm his rightful heir." My sister and brother-in-law protested. But what's wrong with a father supporting his daughter? I sighed, feeling the weight of the situation. While it's normal for parents to support their children, my sister had been using my father's money to settle debts and deal with various troubles. Mrs. Watson, John, who had been silent until now, suggested, "Why don't we let Kelly see the will too?" "The will?" "I have no idea about that," my sister panicked, although it was her own fault for not paying attention. Dad wanted us all to discuss the will's contents when he made it, but my sister brushed it off and went out to play instead. When I pointed this out, my brother-in-law gave her a fierce glare. What were you thinking? This was important. Faced with the question of what to do next, they agreed to hear it. The lawyer then revealed Dad's will, stating clearly that the inheritance was for me and my mother. It also explained why Dad didn't adopt my sister. Initially, he intended to, but he grew disappointed with her behavior towards me, her half-brother, and her reckless spending as she got older. So, I actually have no inheritance rights. Realizing this, my sister was stunned. Damn it! What now? Suddenly, my brother-in-law raised his voice, accusing, "You lied to me. You said you had money." His demeanor turned aggressive, leaving my mother and sister shocked. But I wasn't surprised. My brother-in-law had often shown his greed. Perhaps he even married my sister for her money. "Kelly, don't come back until you've got some money," he commanded. "Wait, Chris? What do you mean? I thought I was going to be wealthy. What a letdown." Roughly pushing past my sister, my brother-in-law stormed out of the room. Left behind, my sister glared at us, her face red with anger, and cried out to our flustered mother, "Mom, why didn't you have me adopted? It's not fair that only you get the inheritance. I should have gotten something too. But you didn't handle it right. This is awful, Mom," she sobbed, making a scene. I was taken aback by her outburst, but the lawyer seemed unfazed, perhaps accustomed to such drama. "Why does he get everything?" "Because I'm Dad's son," I responded, and my sister's eyes filled with anger as she lunged at me, shouting, "You! It would have been better if you were never born." I thought to myself that even if I hadn't existed, Dad would likely have made the same decision given my sister's character. Before I could say anything, the lawyer calmly intervened. "Kelly, if you continue like this, it will involve the police," making my sister flinch, possibly recalling her past shoplifting incidents. "Kelly," our mother called out, tears in her eyes. 6 months had passed, and the inheritance proceedings went smoothly without any hiccups. Though my sister and brother-in-law grumbled for a bit, the lawyer's efficient management left them with no room to meddle. My mother gave my sister some money, but I refrained from commenting on it. What bothered me most was their sudden disappearance with the funds, displaying their blatant gold-digging behavior, which left a sour taste in the mouths of our relatives who were aware of the situation. One day, I took my mother, wife, and daughter out for a meal. Thanks to my wife's suggestion, my mother, who had been somewhat withdrawn since Dad's passing, seemed more cheerful in the company of her adorable granddaughter. "Hey, Mom, why don't you come live with us?" I proposed. "But you know Kelly might drop by sometimes. She only shows up when she needs money, right? Don't be too accommodating with her," my mother hesitated. Her reluctance was understandable, given that my sister is her biological daughter. Plus, if our family moved into the family home, my sister might stir up trouble again. Respecting her concerns, I simply asked her to think it over as I drove towards the family home to drop her off. As we pulled up, we noticed lights on in the supposedly empty house. It wasn't the time for the helper to be there, so maybe my sister had returned. With that in mind, I parked the car in the garage. "Let's pop in for a quick coffee," I suggested. As we stepped out of the car and headed towards the entrance, a car suddenly swerved towards us, narrowly missing us. Reacting to my daughter's cry, I instinctively shielded my wife. Ouch! Thankfully, the car only grazed me, but I was thrown into a nearby flower bed, taking a hard knock. The car came to a halt after hitting the garage entrance. "Are you all right, honey?" My wife and daughter rushed over to help me up, while my mother stood trembling at the entrance, understandably shaken. Panic ensued. I was rushed to the hospital by ambulance and had to stay overnight. Later, I learned that the driver was Chris Adams, my brother-in-law. He claimed to the police that he mistook the accelerator for the brake, but I doubted his explanation. When my mother and sister visited me in the hospital, my sister looked at me coldly and remarked, "You're surprisingly resilient, aren't you?" I couldn't help but think that if I had been seriously injured, my mother would have inherited everything. "Too bad for you," I said with a smirk. My sister visibly tensed. "You were counting on it, weren't you?" I noticed her discomfort as she looked away. Well, Mom told me she plans to waive her inheritance from me, so causing such an accident was pointless. My sister seemed taken aback by this revelation. It appeared incomprehensible to her that someone would refuse what they could inherit. I have a wife and kids, so Mom asked me to pass it on to them. That's what parents do. But, my sister stuttered. I even made a will early on, following Dad's example. I continued, leaving my sister speechless. So unfortunately, my share won't be going to Mom anymore. My sister trembled and shook as she stared at me. Can't you at least give me some? There's $5 million, right? When I firmly refused, my sister's face contorted into a furious expression as she grabbed my collar. Give me half. I'm your sister. I regarded her with pity as she continued to scream in an unsettling tone, perhaps driven to madness by the prospect of the inheritance. Don't you realize that your greediness would disappoint Dad? My sister's face flushed with anger as she reached for my throat. Kelly, what are you doing? My mother returned, her voice raised, as nurses arrived to escort my sister out. Although my mother seemed inclined to defend my sister, it was clear that my sister had directed insults towards her too. Where did I go wrong in raising her? It was heartbreaking to hear my mother say this with sadness in her voice. Shortly after, my mother fell ill. As her condition worsened, my wife and I stepped in to assist with transportation and household tasks at the family home. This seemed to upset my sister, likely because she had encountered my wife during her visits to ask for money or had heard about our help from our mother. One day, my sister called me abruptly. From now on, we'll take care of Mom. You two don't need to come, she declared. What's this all about? I tried to reason with her, but my sister didn't listen and hung up, claiming it was already decided. I confirmed with my wife, who had received the same message and been dismissed. Concerned about my sister's lack of experience in caregiving or household duties, I quickly reached out to my mother. Surprisingly, my brother-in-law had some caregiving experience. At that point, my mother was still quite independent, so it seemed manageable for the time being. I felt a bit relieved. However, within a month, my mother was rushed to the hospital by ambulance due to a medication dosage error. She appeared alarmingly frail when we arrived. The doctor was puzzled. My mother had never made such a mistake before. While my wife stayed with her, I went back to the family home, which was in disarray. The fridge was empty, despite my mother's love for cooking, and it seemed the hired help had been canceled without discussion. I felt ashamed for even considering trusting my sister and was furious. A significant amount of money had been withdrawn from my mother's bank account, even though her bank card and PIN were secured in the safe. Thankfully, the account containing the inheritance was untouched in a safe deposit box. But most of the funds allocated for living expenses were gone. I gathered essential items for my mother's hospital stay, along with her bank card, and returned to explain the situation to her. Did Kelly? My mother seemed unaware of the bank card situation. However, when I inquired about the medication error, she looked somber and confessed that it was prepared by my brother-in-law. Mom, perhaps it's best not to allow my sister into the house anymore, I suggested. John, I promised to take care of you, but the house is in such disarray, and you've lost so much weight. Have you been eating properly? My mother's words weighed heavily on me. Mom, you should come live with us. I'll build a home where we can all be together, I proposed, causing my mother to break down in tears. However, her health continued to deteriorate, despite the doctor's efforts. Perhaps the incident with my sister had weakened her heart. She never recovered and eventually passed away, almost as if following my father. Upon returning to the family home to make funeral arrangements, I discovered that all the valuables had vanished. It appeared my sister and brother-in-law had taken them in their desperate pursuit of money. Standing amidst the empty rooms, I was first shocked and then consumed by a fierce anger. I vowed to hold them accountable for their actions. The day after my mother's funeral, my sister and I were scheduled to meet with the lawyer, presumably to discuss the inheritance. Too bad. Mom's inheritance rightfully belongs to me, her daughter, my sister boldly declared. I couldn't help but chuckle at her statement, as it seemed she was gravely mistaken. Let's see what the will says, I suggested. As the lawyer unveiled the will, my sister's face drained of color. No, this can't be. Kelly is not entitled to inherit anything. That's Dad's final wish, my brother-in-law exploded. However, the lawyer calmly reiterated the same statement. This is absurd. Kelly is that old woman's biological child. My brother-in-law erupted, sweeping items off the table in anger. You can't deceive us. Give us the inheritance now. Chris, did you try to harm my mom? I confronted him. He shot me an irritated glare. What? I never did such a thing, he retorted. Then why was there a mistake with her medication? I pressed further. My brother-in-law scowled in annoyance. Who cares about that, John? It's outrageous that we're not getting any inheritance, my sister interjected, seemingly losing her composure. What have you done? I asked her, stunned. It seemed she hadn't rushed over after hearing about our mother's passing, but had been banking on the inheritance to cover her expenses. Tell me this isn't true. I'm getting nothing. My sister demanded of the lawyer. Well, the lawyer began, carefully explaining the legal distribution of the inheritance. However, after deducting the amount my sister had withdrawn and the items she had sold, there was almost nothing left. She scratched her head in frustration. This outcome was reached after consulting with the lawyer in advance, I interjected. That can't be. It can't be this little. My sister muttered to herself, clearly dissatisfied. Having relied on our parents without ever experiencing the hardships of work, she seemed out of touch with reality. I couldn't contain my contempt for her. Mom thought you'd take care of her, but you just took her money and abandoned her, you ungrateful person. I couldn't hold back my anger. Taking care of someone costs money, you know? What are you talking about? My sister shot back. Then show me the detailed expenses you used for Mom's living costs. I'll cover the necessary expenses, I challenged her, extending my hand. My sister's face paled, and her lips trembled. I don't have that. Without receipts, it won't be recognized, the lawyer emphasized, leaving my sister speechless. Facing her, my brother-in-law attempted to sway me with a pleading tone. John, your sister really needs help. Can't you lend her a hand, even just a little? I declined firmly, feeling my frustration growing, and it seemed my brother-in-law was reaching his limit too. If everything had gone as planned, Kelly would have had the entire inheritance by now, he muttered. What do you mean by that time? I questioned, but before I could delve deeper, my brother-in-law let slip a revealing comment. Because of this guy, nothing ever goes smoothly. I was supposed to get a new car, but all I got was barely enough for repairs. My sister desperately tried to interject, but it was too late. That's a serious accusation. It sounds like fraud, the lawyer remarked, holding a recorder and smiling at the couple. What? That's illegal. I clearly stated at the outset that this meeting would be recorded, and you both agreed to it. My brother-in-law paled upon realizing his mistake. Turning to him, I declared, Chris, I'll be pressing charges for that accident. Don't be absurd. There's no evidence. You've just provided the evidence yourself. My sister burst into tears and shook my brother-in-law in frustration. You fool, it's all your fault. What are we going to do now? Eventually, my brother-in-law faced criminal charges. His previous offenses also came to light, leading to his detention by the police. My sister, implicated as an accomplice, received a lesser sentence. However, unable to afford her rent, she sought help from relatives but was rejected by everyone. As for me, I continued to work diligently without relying on any inheritance, finding solace in the dividends from stocks as a small pleasure.
I have no intention of taking care of Grandma. I don't even want to see her face. Why don't you do it, Lily? My sister-in-law said with a malicious grin. She probably thought that if she could take control of the house, she wouldn't have to worry about Grandma at all. My brother smirked beside her, glancing at me and Grandma. I could see it would be hard for Grandma to find peace in such an environment. It's okay, Grandma. I'm here for you. I said confidently. My name is Amy. I've just turned 50 and am now enjoying a slow-paced life with my husband. Our 2 children have grown up and are following their own paths. The days when I juggled work and family while they were little seem like distant, tender memories now. Today, my life revolves around my work with my husband and the time I spend with my grandmother. My husband, Terry, and I run a well-known traditional restaurant. I manage the business as the owner, while Terry, a skilled chef, supports the establishment with his culinary expertise. I chose this path because I studied business in college and was fascinated by restaurant management. Initially, I wanted to cook for our guests, but things didn't go as planned, and I quickly shifted focus. During college, I started a kitchen job at a luxury hotel near the university, but my cooking skills were lacking. A senior coworker told me I couldn't even peel vegetables properly, so I was reassigned to serving. Although it was a blow, it's now a funny memory we laugh about. Whenever I faced challenges, I turned to my grandmother. She would listen quietly until I finished, then look me in the eye and say, "Amy, I know your dreams and hopes, but life isn't always a straight path. There are detours and bends, and each of these experiences helps you grow. Go at your own pace and stay strong." Her words were a comforting balm. "Thank you, Grandma. No matter how small the step, I'll keep moving forward," I'd say, always buoyed by her gentle encouragement. Having lost my parents early on, she was my greatest comfort and cherished treasure. In the midst of all this, I met my husband, Terry. He was a chef at the hotel where I worked part-time, having mastered cooking over the years. Knowing about my passion for cooking, he approached me and said, "I'm still learning myself, but I'll teach you everything I know if you're interested." I was thrilled and eagerly accepted. From there, we started with the basics, cooking together at each other's homes. The hotel's kitchen was often occupied, so we practiced at home, creating our own private cooking class. As we cooked and stirred pots together, our relationship grew deeper. Before long, we were seriously dating, and after a few years, we got married. Even after marriage, Terry continued to pursue his passion at the hotel kitchen, while I joined a startup, overseeing several restaurants to understand the practical aspects of business management. The theories I learned in university and real-world experience were worlds apart. Despite the challenges, I gradually got the hang of managing a business. With the support of my company, we were given the opportunity to run the upscale traditional restaurant we had always dreamed of. I took on the role of manager, setting up the restaurant and inviting Terry to lead the kitchen. After completing his training, he was eager for a new challenge and happily accepted. Together, we nurtured and grew our restaurant, but my deep involvement in work meant I regrettably spent less time with my dear grandmother. Now, Grandma lives with my brother Colin. He's a serious office worker with a somewhat troublesome personality. When I excitedly told him about my new role as manager through a company program, his reaction was unexpectedly cold. "Wait, are you seriously taking such a risk? Wouldn't it be more secure to remain a regular employee? Besides, managers hired like that don't earn much, do they?" he asked with a skeptical look. "Colin, isn't that a bit harsh?" I tried to counter, but his stance was firm. "Amy, listen closely. Stability is the most important thing. Why are you so intent on doing as you please? Not just you, but your husband too. Don't you realize how tough it is to run a business? What will you do if you fail?" His words left me taken aback. Sure, running a business might be hard, but we had the support of the company. It wasn't entirely on us. Then, with a somewhat malicious grin, my brother's wife, Lily, chimed in. "You two are quite daring, aren't you? But if things go south, don't come running to us for help." Her comment made me silently vow never to rely on them, no matter what. The reason my beloved grandmother ended up with such a mean sister-in-law began when my brother and his wife suddenly moved in. I discovered this during one of my visits. When I rang the doorbell, Lily answered, looking surprised. "Oh, Amy, what are you doing here?" she asked. I was taken aback and blurted out, "Lily, why are you at Grandma's?" Taking a deep breath, Lily smiled and said, "Well, I'll let you in on a secret. Recently, I've been taking care of Grandma here. I wanted to spend more quality time with her, so we decided to move in." She seemed quite proud of herself. Admittedly, with a new restaurant and everything else, I had been too absorbed to notice the change. I had been extremely busy lately, which left me with less time for Grandma. With Lily spending more time at home, she had probably been looking out for her. "Thank you, Lily. It's really a big help," I said, though a pang of sadness hit me at the thought of missing time with my grandmother. When I dropped by Grandma's house, Lily often greeted me with a hint of sarcasm. "Oh, Amy, you're here again. Think Grandma's quite busy, you know. But then, this is Grandma's house," she remarked. I would respond with a smile. "Sorry, I just wanted to chat with Grandma." Visiting Grandma's house every weekend was my joy. She always welcomed me with a warm smile, but lately, I had noticed she wasn't her usual energetic self. I tried to brush it off as my imagination, but one day my fears became a reality. When I knocked on Grandma's door and received no answer, I gently opened it to find her collapse at the entrance. In shock, I rushed to her side, shouting, "Grandma, are you okay?" I immediately called an ambulance and she was taken to the hospital. I accompanied her, and before I knew it, night had fallen. After some time, a doctor called me in to discuss her condition. He began with the ominous words, "She doesn't have much time left." I was devastated and struggled to process the news, but I understood that Grandma was gravely ill. It turned out that this was her regular hospital, and the doctor explained that her condition was beyond surgical intervention. It was best for her to rest at home. While absorbing this news, I received word that Grandma had regained consciousness. I hurried to her room, where she greeted me with a weak smile. "Amy, I'm sorry for surprising you," she said, her voice faint but warm. Through my tears, I asked, "Why didn't you tell me earlier, Grandma?" She replied softly, "I didn't want to worry anyone." At that moment, I felt the profound depth of Grandma's strength and kindness. I decided to cherish the time we had left and spend more quality moments with Grandma. "How about we tell everyone about your illness?" I gently suggested to her. She seemed a bit surprised by the idea but agreed. I hoped my brother and his wife would appreciate the chance to be with Grandma in her remaining days. A few days later, Grandma was discharged from the hospital. However, this didn't signify improvement. She was sent home because there were no more treatment options available. When we arrived at Grandma's house, my brother and Lily were lounging in the living room, their expressions relaxed. Lily, with a cheerful tone, remarked, "Where have you been? It's been so relaxing here while Grandma was away." My brother chuckled and added, "It's been refreshing to have some peace and quiet without Grandma's voice around." I was taken aback by their comments. One look at Grandma, and it was clear how serious her condition was. Trying to keep my emotions in check, I said, "Stop with the jokes. Grandma's condition is very serious. They can't treat her at the hospital anymore." Both my brother and Lily looked stunned. My brother, clearly in disbelief, asked, "You're joking, right?" Lily seemed to dismiss my words with indifference. Taking a deep breath, I told them firmly, "It's true. If you don't believe me, you can ask Grandma's primary doctor directly." With a frail voice, Grandma added, "Actually, I don't have much time left. There's not much I can do from now on." Lily's eyes widened in surprise. "Wait, I didn't sign up to be a caregiver. I'm just living here to save on rent. I can't handle such a huge responsibility," she said, her voice tinged with annoyance. I was incredulous at her words. Grandma's eyes filled with deep sadness as she whispered to herself, "So I'm a burden now." It was clear that Lily and my brother were only concerned with their own comfort, disregarding Grandma's feelings. Holding Grandma's hand, I comforted her. "It's okay, Grandma. I'm here for you. This is your house, and we should prioritize your well-being." I told Lily firmly, but she remained stubborn, showing no sign of changing her mind. "I'm sorry, Amy," Lily finally said, though it was clear she wasn't truly remorseful. I was taken aback by their attitudes. Grandma, wiping away her tears, apologized, and I felt a deep urge to protect her. Lily's gaze was filled with annoyance, as if dealing with us was a burden. "Can you just leave? Honestly, I get distracted with you guys around. Don't come asking for help later because I won't be inclined to assist," she said, her tone sharp. "Seriously, just thinking about Grandma gives me a headache." "Don't try to shift the responsibility onto us," my brother added, glancing at Grandma with evident irritation. It was clear that the inconvenience was on their side. Yet, as soon as they learned about Grandma's condition, their only thought was to get rid of her. Their attitude filled me with a heavy sadness. "We won't be speaking to Lily or you anymore. Our family relationship ends here. If anything happens later, don't rely on us," Grandma said, her voice trembling and her eyes misty. "I won't come to this house anymore. Goodbye." "Great, even if Amy gets into trouble somewhere, we won't be involved." My brother smirked. If Amy is in trouble, it's none of our concern. Do your best with Grandma, Lily said with a dismissive wave. With that, Grandma and I left the house. I decided to take her to my place in a taxi and start a new chapter together. As the taxi door opened, Grandma's eyes widened in surprise. "Oh, what a magnificent house," she exclaimed, clearly impressed. Indeed, our home was larger and more glamorous than where Grandma had been living. The company we work for is unique. In addition to our regular wages, we receive bonuses based on the restaurant's revenue. This generous system was designed to motivate employees, providing us with a stable and comfortable lifestyle. As I was lost in thought, the front door opened gently to reveal Terry with a warm smile. "Welcome back. I've been waiting," he greeted cheerfully. I had texted Terry about Grandma's arrival, and he had thoughtfully prepared tea for us. After such a long time, Grandma was delighted to see Terry again, her face lighting up with a warm smile. I led her into the living room and served her some of the comforting tea. As she sipped it, she looked visibly relieved and took a deep breath, saying, "This place feels like somewhere I can comfortably spend my remaining days. At the other house, I felt like I was just in the way." Her words carried a hint of sadness, and I could sense the coldness she had experienced from Lily and my brother. My shock grew when I learned that Lily had been taking Grandma's pension money without permission. Could Lily really do that? I muttered under my breath, and Terry, equally shocked, said, "I can't believe it. We can't let this go." I felt the same way. "We should give them a taste of their own medicine," Terry said passionately. I nodded in agreement. "Yes, let's take some action." A few days later, I received several calls from my brother. After waiting a while, I answered to find Lily's angry voice on the other end. "Hello? Why the constant calls?" I asked, feigning ignorance. "It's about Grandma's house. We've been asked to leave suddenly." "This is your doing, isn't it?" Lily shot back. Trying to hide my amusement, I replied, "I have no idea what you're talking about." Her distress was evident as she said, "Wait, why would she do that suddenly? Did you and Terry plan this?" "No, we didn't do anything," I said calmly. "Grandma decided to sell the house because it was in her name all along. We were surprised too, but she simply wanted to move on. The sale has already been finalized and there's a new owner. Staying there longer might cause issues." Lily's voice was filled with a mix of shock and confusion. "Do you think Grandma really understands what's going on? Did you guys offer her some sort of sweet deal?" "No, we didn't do anything of the sort," I assured her. "Grandma just wanted a fresh start." Terry spoke with the real estate agency right away, and Grandma agreed to the sale because she didn't want to deal with you and Colin anymore. As I spoke, I felt a sense of satisfaction. "Let's find a new path and build our lives separately," I added, ready to move forward and leave the past behind. I ignored Lily's frustration and tried to stay positive. "Where are we supposed to live now? Our previous flat is gone." Lily's voice quivered with anger. From what I gathered from Grandma, Lily had a penchant for shopping, always flaunting the latest designer bags and frequenting beauty spas and salons nearly every week. My brother's income, on the other hand, wasn't particularly high, and with their old debts, their financial situation must be quite strained. Despite their challenges, my brother seemed infatuated with Lily's beauty and probably indulged her every whim, which is why they had moved into Grandma's house to save on expenses. To be honest, I wasn't overly concerned about their situation, so I playfully suggested, "Why not try staying in a motel for a while?" "Oh, but it might be tough if you're short on money." Lily paused, then replied in surprise, "Why are you talking about our financial situation?" I didn't get any response from my brother at that moment. Later, Grandma took the phone and, smiling, said, "Actually, I told Amy everything. And by the way, Amy's house is really nice, spacious with the latest appliances and very comfortable. It's completely different from what you're used to." My brother seemed intrigued by Grandma's words. When he took the phone, he asked, "Why are you guys so rich? I thought you were struggling financially." "It might surprise you, but aside from our regular salaries, we also receive a substantial bonus. Roughly speaking, we probably earn about twice what you make in a month. Both of us work hard and live comfortably," I said with a hint of pride. He was silent for a moment, clearly taken aback. "Seriously?" "Yes," I confirmed. "You always said full-time employment is the best, but maybe you should broaden your horizons. We seem to be managing quite well with our approach." I advised them coolly, "You need to sort things out on your own without relying on us." Lily's sweet voice and then surprised me with a request. Hey Amy, could we visit your place, just your brother and me, even if it's just for a short while? Taken aback by her proposal, I firmly replied, no, I've already told you that we're done. Figure things out on your own. They tried calling me several times afterward, but I had nothing to discuss and chose not to answer. I decided they were no longer part of my life. Soon after, I received unexpected news. My brother and Lily had been arrested for shoplifting from a small store. From the police, I learned about Lily's enormous debts, which far exceeded what my brother's salary could cover. She had even been siphoning money from Grandma's pension. Debt collectors had gone to my brother's workplace, which forced him to leave his job. Their financial situation deteriorated rapidly, and they were reduced to stealing donuts and sandwiches to eat. The police informed me that, during their arrest, both my brother and Lily had pleaded with them to reach out to me. My brother said, I know we've done wrong, but please help us. Lily tearfully begged, forgive our past mistakes and help us just this once. Despite their pleas, I couldn't easily forgive them. Their reckless spending and neglect of Grandma had led to serious consequences. I believed they were now facing the outcomes of their own decisions. Months have passed since then, but my feelings remain unchanged. Grandma is still lively and enjoys each day, which brings me comfort. I've taken time off work to spend quality moments with her, and I'm grateful that my company is supportive during times like these. Though Grandma occasionally feels unwell, we find joy in our walks through the garden and in our conversations about the flowers. These moments are precious to me. Grandma, your birthday is coming up. Is there anything special you'd like to eat? I asked with a smile. She replied, I'd love a sandwich made by you. Although my cooking isn't exceptional, her kind request touched me deeply. I still have many places to show her, foods to taste together, and stories to share. I cherish every heartwarming moment with her and strive to make her smile as much as possible while she's feeling better.
I, a 20-year-old woman, was raised by my father, a 49-year-old man, alongside my older brothers, Lyle and Kyle, both 23 years old and twins. Our mother left shortly after I was born, so I never had a maternal figure while growing up. I tried to ask my dad why she left, but he always dodged the question. This left me with lingering feelings of self-blame. To make matters worse, my older brothers often used the old "You're why mom left" card during arguments in my middle school years. My mother began to call me and my brothers during that time, claiming that she wanted me back in her life. However, she made no effort to get to know us, and she broke many promises. The final straw for me was when she didn't come to a beauty pageant I had been excited about for months. It may sound petty, but it meant a lot to me at the time. She had sworn she would come, but of course, she broke that promise too. After I let her have it during a lengthy phone call, I decided to go no contact with her. A few days ago, my dad texted me asking if I wanted to have dinner with him and my brothers. He said he was going to make my favorite meal, and I agreed. However, when I arrived, I heard a woman's laughter coming from the kitchen. I walked in and found my dad, Lyle, and Kyle laughing and talking with my mother. I couldn't hide my anger and confusion, and I must have voiced my thoughts because I asked, "What is she doing here?" Everyone fell silent, and my dad eventually told me to watch my tone. They claimed they only wanted to talk about their future. My mother dropped the bombshell that she and my dad had rekindled their relationship and had been dating for months. You can probably imagine how shocked and upset I was by this revelation. Lyle then revealed that everyone in the immediate family knew about their relationship except for me because they were concerned about my reaction. I was still standing there, seething with rage, and when my dad tried to grab my arm to sit me down for a talk, I pulled away and stormed out of the house. Since then, my dad and Lyle have bombarded me with texts, calling me immature and saying that I made my mom cry. My friends are divided on the matter, and I'm left wondering if I'm the one at fault here. To start, I want to make it clear that I don't believe I'm in the wrong in this situation. They essentially ambushed me at the dinner table, and I couldn't be expected to accept her and act like everything was fine. The past has haunted me for a long time, and my reaction is completely understandable. I can't blame you for walking out on them. Your father, as an adult, is free to choose his romantic partner, but he should also understand that there will be consequences to such a decision, especially considering your feelings toward your mother. He must have had an inkling about your reaction. So for him to set up a situation like this without any consideration for your feelings is quite perplexing. You might never forgive your mother for her actions, But if they were going to go through with this, there had to be a more considerate way to handle it. Many people agree that you are not in the wrong for how you feel. Your family blindsided you and then blamed you for your natural and emotional reaction. If you choose to distance yourself from your mother, you shouldn't be forced to accept your father's decisions blindly, OP asserted. I understand he's an adult, but I can't fathom what he sees in her. She left him to raise 3 kids alone, and now that we're all grown up, she wants to come back. This whole situation has me feeling incredibly mixed up and emotional. Bonnie chimed in, offering her perspective. Focus on what you want. Do you trust your father and brothers enough to continue a relationship? Opie sighed, struggling to find the right words. Trust isn't the word I'd use, but I do love them deeply. They've never done anything as hurtful as this, except for Lyle, but his teasing about my fashion sense pales in comparison. It would have been better if my dad had talked to me alone. The fact that they all kept it from me feels incredibly inconsiderate. I've been in situations where I was left out or the last to know, and it's tough, Confused sympathetically said. Opie appreciated the support, thank you. I just feel so upset and confused with my dad right now. They've never kept anything like this from me before. Usually, my dad addresses matters with all of us together. In response to Opie's turmoil, Nopi offered reassurance. You're completely justified in going no contact with your family over this. They ambushed you and made you deal with it. You endured years of heartbreak, broken promises, and torment from your mother and some family members. Opie felt the need to clarify. I want to clear the air about my brothers. They didn't constantly torment me about our mother. It mostly happened during big fights when they would drop the "this is why mom left" card. It's not right, of course, but I can somewhat understand where they were coming from. They had a more established relationship with her. Tori Beth firmly added, you're not at fault here. You were blindsided because nobody said anything knowing you would be angry. They were trying to soften your reaction with a done deal. Make it clear to everyone, especially your dad and brothers, that while you can't dictate their choices, they can't dictate yours either. If they choose to let her back in and possibly get hurt again, that's their decision. Your trust has been broken far too many times, and you're not willing to do the same. Tell them that while you love them, they shouldn't pressure you into anything. You have every right to cut them off and any flying monkeys they send your way. Let them know that in family gatherings, dinners, holidays, or reunions, you'll be civil, but you won't acknowledge her as a stepmom or mom. She has no right to try and parent you. Before I get into anything, I just wanted to express my gratitude for all the kind words and reassurance. I wasn't really expecting such a supportive response. I'd also like to apologize for the delay in my response. I've been busy with work and other things that have kept me occupied. With your advice in mind, I reached out to my dad and told him that I needed answers about what was going on. He agreed, but he suggested having dinner at his place. I had to firmly remind him that he lost my trust when he tried to back me into a corner. He eventually came over to my apartment. A friend of mine, a 24-year-old male, was staying in my sewing room for support. My dad started sobbing and begged for forgiveness, expressing how he just wanted us to be the family we were 20 years ago, a family I can't even remember. These were crocodile tears, so I hugged him to calm him down, but also insisted on getting answers, not tears. He composed himself and proceeded to explain everything I had asked. First, my mom was very young when she got together with my dad, with a significant age gap. They started dating right after high school graduation. Second, my mother had a history of drug addiction, something I had suspected. She even overdosed once, and my dad had to rush her to the hospital. The twins suffered during this period. Third, I was an unplanned pregnancy. My parents decided to put my mother in rehab during her pregnancy, but she remained miserable and ran away to Florida after my birth. Recently, my mom got clean, found a job, and wanted to apologize to my dad. They rekindled their relationship and decided to inform the twins first before telling me. It was helpful to have this information, and I thanked him for sharing it. But I also questioned why she hadn't apologized to the twins, whose hearts she had broken consistently. My dad started to backpedal, suggesting that I should give her a chance to prove herself, especially since the twins already had. He also admitted that it was a really bad move not to mention to me that mom was back. I explained to him that I had given her too many chances, and she had irreparably damaged our relationship. However, I clarified that I wasn't going to cut them off entirely, but mom would be treated as a new person. I insisted that we needed therapy without mom before continuing anything. My dad was a bit upset when I conveyed this to him, but he agreed to the therapy and said he would inform Lyle and Kyle. When he told the twins, Kyle was on board, but Lyle was furious. He called multiple times and sent hurtful texts, essentially boiling it down to me being a spoiled brat who needed to get over the past. I responded firmly before blocking him, and we've been in no contact since. We also had our first therapy session, which wasn't groundbreaking but more of an introductory session. We discussed what we want to work on. I even showed our therapist this post. I found myself alone with her, needing to provide more context because I can be a bit scattered at times. She expressed her desire to delve deeper into my feelings about my mother, alongside my father and brothers if possible. I'll attempt to provide further updates whenever I can. I am profoundly sorry for what you're experiencing right now. Your mother's sudden return into your life, with your father welcoming her back, must be incredibly heartbreaking. The feelings involved in this situation must be overwhelming. On top of that, for your family to turn their back on you and label you as a spoiled brat must be deeply hurtful. I genuinely hope that therapy continues to help you, providing you with the support and understanding you need. Now, I'd like to turn the conversation over to you guys. What are your thoughts on this situation? Please share your insights in the comments below. Let's now move on to another story. This next one comes from a new user, 9461, and it comes with an update. The question is, am I the aita for telling my uncle to stop gifting my daughter extravagant trips? A bit of backstory. When my sister and I were kids, every year for our birthdays and Christmas, my uncle would give us cards. Inside those cards were printed out pictures of various places like local theme parks, zoos, aquariums, and museums. Basically, any place a kid would love to visit. After we opened the cards, he would enthusiastically tell us that we were going to that place. He would make grand promises like, "It's going to be the best trip of your life." However, the catch was, we never actually went on any of those trips. Initially, it was disappointing, but eventually, I started expecting it and just went along with it. I harbor no animosity towards him because, as an adult, I understand he did this due to financial constraints. Here's where my issue begins. My daughter recently turned 5, and for her birthday, my uncle gave her a card. Inside was a printed out picture of a theme park located about 2 hours away from our house. He promised her a fun weekend away, with elaborate details such as a huge hotel room with a swimming pool, endless snacks, and tickets to every show she wanted to see at the park. Naturally, my daughter was overjoyed. For the past week, she has been talking non-stop about this trip, expressing her excitement to her entire class at school. It breaks my heart to see that smile on her face, knowing deep down that it's not going to happen. I recall how disappointing it was for me, and I didn't want my daughter to go through the same. So I decided to text my uncle. Here's what the message said. "Hi, your message in daughter's names card was beautiful. However, could you please leave out the promise of extravagant trips next time?" The thought and gesture are amazing, but I find it hard to explain when she asked me about the trip. She loves spending time with you, and even a nice lunch together would make her happy. He never responded, but my aunt told me he was upset. She mentioned something about him feeling offended, thinking I implied he could only afford a nice lunch. I didn't mean it that way at all. I just wanted him to understand that my daughter loves him and wants to spend time together without needing extravagant promises. I can see why he interpreted it that way, and now I'm questioning if I'm in the wrong. This has been an unspoken thing in my family for so long, and I wonder if I should have just left it that way. But I can't bear the thought of my little girl being disappointed so many times. My sisters and my mom agree with me. My mom even regrets not stopping it when we were kids. So am I wrong for telling my uncle to stop gifting my daughter extravagant trips? Absolutely not. This is the first time he's done it because she's only 5 years old. Looking back, I realize it might have been wise to immediately clarify to her that this is something uncle does and then put a stop to it with him right away. Stories like this are heartbreaking for kids. The idea of her getting excited, telling all her friends about it, and then finding out it's all false is incredibly cruel. Poet Revolutionary rightly points out, not the aita, but why are you being sensitive to his feelings when he wasn't sensitive to yours when you were a child? Tell him that his actions cause you repeated disappointment and you don't want your child to experience the same. Surprises are not presents. A lunch or an activity on the day would be lovely, but other than that, stick to an actual gift or give nothing at all. Disastrous Nail agrees, saying, not the aita. Stop being nice because he's not being nice. He knowingly gets a child's hopes up and then crushes them. There isn't one nice thing about what he's doing. Tell him he's no longer allowed to give gifts because he's a known liar, and all attempts will be intercepted by you. Pandora chimes in, saying, "Not that aita, your uncle is being cruel to another generation." She said, "I understand that you might feel offended by what I said, but you are being cruel to my daughter by promising a trip that will never materialize. You did the same thing to me and my sisters when we were children, so I know firsthand how much it hurts to have these grand promises made but never fulfilled. I will not allow you to hurt my daughter in the same way. Whether it's due to a lack of time, finances, or another reason, it is unacceptable to make a child feel this way. You know my daughter loves spending time with you. She would have been so happy with a trip to the local park and some ice cream. Now I have to deal with a little girl's broken heart, just like mine was so many times. Please think about the consequences of your actions. Just because you don't witness them doesn't mean they don't happen." Brain surgery woman commented, "Not the aita, and I would definitely protect your daughter because that's exactly what you are doing. The disappointment for everyone when it doesn't happen is so harsh for a child. It's not a life lesson she needs to learn. Too bad he's upset about your implication. Your daughter comes first. He's making empty promises and setting her up to not believe or trust when someone gives her something exciting. You already went through that and know how it feels. She doesn't deserve that." Amber All Day pointed out, "You're the aita for not telling your daughter the truth. I find it unbelievable that you let her be so excited for an entire week, to the point of telling her school friends about her promised treat, and at no point you could have said, 'Sorry, sweetheart, Uncle was only telling a story. He won't be taking you on a trip. He did this to me my whole childhood. It's just a lovely dream, but it won't ever be a real trip.' Why did you say that to her the same day that he told her about this fake present? When she is eventually disappointed, that will be completely on you as a parent. You should know better and should do better." 3Baller added, "You're the aita because you enabled lies to be a birthday gift. I'm sorry you were raised being given these lies, but it needs to stop. It's a bad idea that only persists around in your family because a cheap man made a tradition to allow himself to be cheap and unthoughtful every year. I wish I had a tradition that made me a good person for not spending money, but at least I don't lie to children. And knick-knack or candy would have been more thoughtful and also as cheap as a false promise, and it wouldn't make you resent your relatives. Please end your family tradition." In an update, the original poster acknowledged the feedback, stating, "Thanks to everyone for your feedback on my last post. A lot of people asked why I was being so nice to my uncle, and honestly, I think I underestimated how weird it was because it's been so normalized in my family. I didn't want to cause drama, so I went about it as non-confrontational as possible. I agree now that I should have been more direct. Another concern many of you had was that I allowed this to happen to my daughter previously. That is not true. This is the first time he promised her one of his trips, which is why I decided to say something so this doesn't become a recurring thing. Here's the update. I tried to call my uncle twice, but he didn't answer. I managed to get through to my aunt and explained everything to her, how many times he did this to my siblings and me, and how often we were disappointed. I told her how excited my daughter was, and if they were actually planning to take her on this trip, I would apologize. She didn't take that well, she told me. I told them that I felt they were creating unnecessary drama and that my daughter and I weren't acting entitled to expect them to drop everything for the trip. I was shocked and angry and said, 'How dare you say that she didn't imagine this trip in her mind and expect you to take her? You promised her this trip, and her disappointment is not entitlement. It's not my job to make sure a grown man feels secure in himself, and it's a shame my family spent so long coddling him.' I was so mad that I just hung up. I no longer feel any ounce of guilt for setting my boundaries. Many people asked if I could take my daughter on the trip. Unfortunately, that theme park closes for the season this month. However, I surprised her with something even better. After the phone call with my aunt, my partner and I decided to book a trip to Disneyland. It may sound crazy and impulsive, but we've been wanting to plan this for a while, and we decided it's the perfect time. My kid is entitled to an extravagant trip. Last year, we sat her down and explained that her uncle wouldn't be able to take her on the promised trip. I tried to be as honest as possible without confusing her. She was understandably upset and had a lot of questions. After we answered them all, I told her not to worry because her mom and dad are taking us somewhere instead. When she found out it was Disneyland, she was over the moon. She spent all day deciding which Minnie Mouse stuffed animal she wants to take with her. I told her to tell her classmates that her trip got upgraded. All things considered, it's a happy ending. I know I won't always be able to protect her from disappointment, but I sure as hell will do my best. She's getting that giant hotel room she was promised.
My fiancé and I made a mutual decision to embrace an open relationship a year ago. We established clear boundaries. While physical interactions with others were allowed, emotional connections beyond our partnership were off limits. However, my suspicions grew when I began to suspect he was developing an emotional bond with a woman he had been physically involved with. As our wedding date approached, I found myself wanting to close the open relationship due to its impact on our bond. I had engaged in purely physical relationships with 4 men, adhering to our agreement. On the other hand, my fiancé had intimate encounters with several women, but it seemed there was nothing more to it. That was until I discovered he had been seeing one particular woman for at least 3 months. My investigation revealed that he was taking her out for dinners and lunches, messaging her daily, and even planning work trips together. This emotional involvement crossed the boundaries we had set, leaving me feeling furious and betrayed. I resolved that I couldn't proceed with our relationship under these circumstances. I wanted him to end his emotional involvement with her. Otherwise, I couldn't go through with marrying him. We had promised to prioritize each other, and his actions had clearly violated that agreement. I planned to confront him that evening, seeking an explanation for his breach of trust and honesty. I didn't form emotional connections with other men and remained faithful to our agreement. You see, he must have been deeply hurt by my initial suggestion of having friends with benefits. The problems in my relationship with my fiancé came to a head on a Friday, shortly after I discovered his emotional involvement with a woman he had initially only had a physical relationship with. Our open relationship began last year, but we had been exclusive before that. On that fateful Friday, he went to her place after work, intending to return on Saturday. However, he informed me on Saturday that he would be staying until Sunday. He explained that she was unwell and had a migraine coming on, so he wanted to make sure she was okay before leaving. I called him out on his excuses, as it seemed unnecessary for him to stay with her for a migraine. He insisted he was being honest and promised to return on Sunday afternoon, which he did. Afterward, I confronted him about my knowledge of his relationship with this woman, which we both agreed was off limits in our open relationship. We had agreed to physical partners only, without emotional connections to others. He seemed taken aback by how much I knew about his interactions and outings with her. I confessed that I had looked at his email and WhatsApp messages, which enraged him. He refused to engage in further conversation, but I pressed him, knowing he was hiding something. Eventually, he approached me and dropped the bombshell. He had been contemplating our relationship and had concluded that he no longer wanted to marry me. When I inquired if he was ending our engagement, he went further, stating he was done with the relationship altogether. Amid heated arguments about his infidelity, he admitted that his decision was directly linked to his deep feelings for this woman. He confessed to being in love with her and acknowledged that he had cut ties with all his other partners because he was emotionally invested in her. He described feeling loved and cherished when with her, appreciating that she had chosen to be exclusively with him. He declared his intention to commit to her. I expressed my desire to close our relationship and be only with him, realizing that the open arrangement was not working for us. However, he firmly refused, asserting that he couldn't end his relationship with her and that he no longer cared to make things work with me, as everything had changed irreparably. I reminded him that he had agreed to open our relationship and had been involved with several women. Yet, he was now holding me responsible for our mutual decision. He denied blaming anyone, expressing that he initially believed the open relationship would work out fine. However, over time, he found the experiences empty and felt pathetic engaging in casual encounters. He described the encounters as meaningless and admitted feeling terrible about it all. He stated his desire for complete commitment, expressing his preference for a more meaningful connection. He didn't offer an apology for emotionally cheating behind my back. When I pointed out that he was ending years of commitment and an engagement for a mere 3-month fling, he coldly insisted it wasn't just a fling. I couldn't believe his detached and indifferent demeanor. Although he didn't explicitly say it, he was seriously contemplating moving in with her after only 3 months. His words left me devastated and hollow. I am torn between waiting for him to realize he might be rushing into this new relationship and abruptly leaving our life and home together, or letting him go and seeing if he ever comes back to me. I feel too shocked and confused to react, spending the entire night awake, trying to comprehend what happens now. We were supposed to get married later this year, and the thought of canceling our plans and telling everyone it's off is unbearable. My mind is overwhelmed, and I am struggling to cope. As for whether I should inform the other woman about his engagement, I'm unsure if she is aware of it. Reading the comments, I am left feeling like I am the one who played a game and ended up with a heart-wrenching prize. The situation has turned, and he has closed the door that we once opened, leaving me standing on the other side in disbelief. How does it make you feel to picture him taking this woman out for a romantic candlelit meal, filled with sweet, tender moments? Does it churn your stomach and shatter your heart? The truth is, when you hinted that he wasn't enough for you by suggesting sleeping with other guys, you made him feel inadequate. From a purely rational perspective, he thought he was better off finding someone else and staying with you. After all, you implied there was someone specific you wanted to be with, even if you didn't explicitly say it. I know it might not be the most ethical path, but in his eyes, it seemed like the right thing to do, especially since you had experience with open relationships in the past. Furthermore, despite your claim of no emotional attachments outside your relationship, you were never emotionally available for him. So he found someone else, someone who, in his own words, made him the sole focus of her affection. You can't salvage this, nor should you try. Your selfishness and neglect pushed him away, and while he's not blameless, he's far less at fault than you. Let him go and find happiness. Don't bother contacting the other woman because she's evidently closer to him than you are now. I agree with all of this. Despite OP's attempts to justify herself, she fails to grasp the gravity of her actions. The relationship was opened up as a last resort when things were falling apart. His self-worth deteriorated, and this was never communicated properly. It's clear he was deeply hurt. Frankly, it doesn't seem like OP has the choice to close the relationship anymore, considering how oblivious she appears to be. I can't help but wonder if this is some April Fool's Day prank, because the situation seems almost too absurd to be real. If it isn't a joke, it's downright creepy to think someone like OP exists out there. I'm sorry for your situation, but belittling others won't change the reality. Now for the next story. I, a 20-year-old female, pushed my 19-year-old male boyfriend into an open relationship, and now I fear he's going to leave me. The title pretty much sums it up. We've been dating for almost 3 years, starting back in high school. Our intimate life used to be amazing, but recently it lost its spark. My best friend at the time suggested that the only way to fix the relationship was by opening it up. So I sat down with my boyfriend and explained what an open relationship entailed. I was genuinely excited about this new experience, but my boyfriend was initially hesitant. It took a week of convincing and explaining the pros and cons for him to agree. It was clear that he had reservations, as he believed it would permanently alter our relationship. Despite his reluctance, we opened up our relationship, and a few months passed. During this time, I engaged in a physical relationship with one of my coworkers, devoid of any emotional attachments. It was enjoyable, but I began to miss being intimate with my boyfriend and yearned to return to monogamy. However, my world was turned upside down when I discovered that my boyfriend was sleeping with far more people than I was. What hurt even more was that many of these individuals were from our high school, and the ultimate betrayal was that he had fallen in love with the concept of an open relationship, while I wanted to revert to monogamy. I felt betrayed and conflicted about how things had unfolded. As for the top advice, well, It seemed like my plan had backfired. I recognized that but desperately wanted to return to monogamy, even though my boyfriend was enjoying the open relationship concept. The phrase, "play stupid games, win stupid prizes," resonated with my situation. Others pointed out that I wasn't betrayed. I had pushed for this arrangement. Now that it seemed to be working for my boyfriend, I couldn't suddenly ask to close it. I was told I might have to live with the consequences of my actions or risk the relationship collapsing. My friend's advice had been misguided, and there were better ways to address relationship issues than taking such a drastic step. Ultimately, I was advised that I couldn't put the genie back in the bottle. My boyfriend was content with the current arrangement, and my choices had led us down this path. Ending the relationship might be the only option if we couldn't find a compromise. I was cautioned against thinking he would just leave me, as he seemed satisfied with the open relationship. Now, everything seems to be going well on the surface, despite how I'm truly feeling. If I were to tell him that I no longer wanted an open relationship, he probably wouldn't agree to end it. He enjoys the freedom of the open relationship, relishing both physical intimacy with others and the comfort of having me at home. It's evident that I've made a mistake. As for the last story, I'm a 29-year-old woman in a 2-year relationship with my 31-year-old boyfriend. I wasn't content with our monogamous relationship, so I initiated the conversation about an open relationship after a year and a half. My motivation wasn't dissatisfaction with him. Rather, I missed the excitement of flirting in new relationships, which I knew I couldn't recreate with him. We set some ground rules. Each of us could have one extra partner at a time, strictly friends with benefits, not one-night stands. These partners couldn't be people already in our lives, and we couldn't see them more than once a week without the other's permission. Additionally, bringing them home required mutual agreement. Initially, the open relationship seemed like a good solution. I had the opportunity to explore new connections without diving into a string of physical relationships. However, my boyfriend started seeing Christine. He followed all our rules and was transparent about his interactions with her. Yet he didn't stop seeing her. Despite my attempts to move on from people to avoid attachment, he continued seeing Christine for 4 months. Recently, he suggested a threesome with her, and I reluctantly agreed to meet her for coffee without him present. The encounter left me feeling angry and uncomfortable. I cut the date short and informed my boyfriend that I was not interested in pursuing a threesome with her. What frustrated me most was his refusal to consider a threesome involving my friend with benefits. Despite my openness to one with Christine, he outright rejected the idea and wouldn't even meet my friend, despite me meeting all of his partners. The situation left me feeling frustrated and confused about our relationship dynamics. I've reached a point where the open relationship doesn't matter to me anymore. Is there any way to close things up again and move past this? Some general advice. Treat others how you want to be treated. You can't have your cake and eat it too. And for the vast majority of people, open relationships are a terrible idea. In retrospect, asking for an open relationship seems selfish now because it was all about me scratching my own itch, not about exploring something meaningful with my partner. When my boyfriend followed the rules I set, I selfishly decided to close the relationship due to my own jealousy. This situation makes me question my emotional capacity to handle either a healthy open relationship or a healthy closed one. It feels like this post perfectly embodies the typical progression of open relationships. For many men, the hardest part of opening a relationship is their partner having physical intimacy with other men. For women, it's often dealing with the emotional connections their partner forms with other women. At the beginning of an open relationship, when both partners start exploring with others, it's usually more challenging for the man. He has to navigate his emotions and do a lot of emotional work, whereas the woman often finds it relatively easy and is enthusiastic about the non-monogamous lifestyle during this time. However, complications often arise when the man starts bonding deeply with another partner, forcing the woman to face difficult emotions. At this point, instead of dealing with her feelings, she might demand to close the relationship and use various tactics, like vetoes and new rules, to keep the relationship effectively one-sided. It's important to understand that suggesting an open relationship and then getting upset when your partner engages in one is precisely why this idea is problematic in the first place. Not everyone desires casual encounters with strangers, especially if they're in a relationship. As for my specific feelings when meeting the other woman, it wasn't just about her looks. She wasn't the type of girl I expected my boyfriend to be interested in. I'm taller and more athletically built, into hiking and climbing, while she's petite with a push-up bra, fitting the typical cute girl image. It's not about jealousy. It's about the surprise that the girl he chose as his friend with benefits doesn't match my expectations. And that concludes this discussion. If you have any thoughts to share, please leave a comment below. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this content. See you in the next one. Good day, everyone.
Oh, I messed up really bad and now I'm scared. You can call me Cindy, and I'm 23 years old. My boyfriend, Cameron, is 25. We're both from this tiny town in Oklahoma. We kind of knew each other because he was a bit older, but we weren't close. Around 3 years ago, we started talking more when he came back from college. He'd visit the grocery store where I worked. I was a cashier, and he'd always come to my line. He was always so nice and polite. I tried dropping hints that I liked him, but he didn't seem to get it. One day, when my line was slow, I finally got the courage to talk to him. I asked about his major, and we ended up chatting for about 10 minutes. He finally realized I was interested and gave me his number. I called him right after work, and we talked for hours. We went out to dinner that night and just clicked. We fell in love that weekend. Crazy, right? We started seeing each other every weekend. After he graduated, he got a great job in the city, bought a cool car, and got a nice apartment. A few months later, he asked me to move in with him. Even though our parents weren't thrilled about it, they supported us. Cameron said it was a test to see if we could handle living together before marriage. I was so happy. Living in the city was amazing. We both found good jobs, and I loved working at a coffee shop near our place. We made friends, and life was fun. We'd been living together for about 9 months when we started looking at other apartments just to see what else was out there. I also joined a yoga class nearby. There was this guy, Ed, who was always at the coffee shop and also came to the yoga class. He was older, in his late 40s, and really friendly. He was successful, drove a nice car, and dressed well. I got curious about yoga because he seemed so passionate about it, and I decided to talk to him one day. I asked Ed if he recommended the yoga studio he went to, and he said it's a good idea. So I decided to check it out myself. It was near our apartment, which was great. On the other hand, Cameron, my boyfriend, used a gym near his office, but it was far away and sometimes took forever to get there. I started going to yoga classes and really enjoyed them. After work, around 2 p.m., I'd head to the studio. This fit perfectly with my work schedule. I'd work from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., then do yoga until 3:30 p.m. After that, I'd go home and prepare dinner for Cameron. One day, Ed, the guy from the coffee shop and yoga class, asked how I liked the studio. I told him I loved it and thanked him for the recommendation. He mentioned that he might join classes around that time, particularly hot yoga, which started at 1:30 p.m. He also said he went to the gym for weightlifting and boxing a few days a week. A couple of days later, I bumped into Ed at the yoga studio. We talked like we always did at the coffee shop. Somehow, he convinced me to try a hot yoga class. I gave it a shot, and it turned out I really liked it. We started spending more time together, going to classes and stuff. Looking back, it wasn't the best idea. But at the time, I didn't really think about it. This went on for a few weeks until one day, I can't explain why, Ed and I ended up at Cameron's apartment on a Thursday afternoon. We made a terrible mistake, something I deeply regret now. I felt so guilty about it, but Ed suggested we meet at his place the following Monday to avoid disrespecting Cameron. Ed's apartment was in a dodgy neighborhood, sparsely furnished with just a few old chairs, a TV, a small table with 2 chairs, a simple double bed, and an old dresser. It wasn't what I expected, and I wished I had left in hindsight. But I didn't want to be rude. It turned out that Ed wasn't as well off as I thought. He spent his money on his car, clothes, and jewelry, not his living space. Afterward, I told Ed we needed to end our relationship because I loved my boyfriend and didn't want to mess up what we had. Ed cynically laughed and said, "You can't possibly love your boyfriend if you did what you did, can you?" I insisted that I did love Cameron, but Ed said my desire for him outweighed my feelings for Cameron by far. It was a harsh reality check for me. I gathered my stuff and left Ed's apartment, feeling tainted and incredibly foolish for what happened. It wasn't like me at all. I promise it's not. I can't explain why I did this with Ed. It happened during a time of the month when my hormones often feel uncontrollable. Though that's not an excuse. I'm just trying to make sense of my actions. I spent the rest of that day in tears until Cameron came home. We had dinner, watched TV, and relaxed, but Cameron seemed distant. He'd been feeling unwell, so I assumed it was because of that. On Tuesday, he still seemed off and distant. We hadn't been intimate for almost a week, which was unusual for us. Looking back, I think he might have known about Ed and me, which is why he was keeping his distance. On Wednesday, I got home just before 3 p.m., but my apartment key was missing from my key ring. I panicked, thinking it had broken off somehow, but all my other keys were still there. Then it hit me, Cameron had taken the apartment key. I tried calling and texting him, but there was no response, which was strange because he usually sent a quick text even when he was busy. I decided to go to the apartment office and ask for help. They had keys to all the apartments, so I explained my situation to one of the coordinators. They took me into the manager's office and closed the door. After a few minutes, they called me back in and asked me to sit down. The manager told me something shocking. Cameron had moved out that morning and left a letter to terminate the lease after its 1-year term. I couldn't believe it. I was devastated. They showed me the bags he left for me in their office, filled with my stuff and gifts I had bought for him over the years. It hit me that he must have known about Ed and me. And I fell apart in front of these kind ladies. They helped me carry the bags to my car and offered me water, snacks, and tissues. I sat in my car for over an hour, crying and trying to figure out what to do. I attempted to reach Cameron through calls and messages, but he didn't respond. I thought about staying in the vacant apartment until the lease ended, but he didn't reply to that either. I knew he was angry, but he hadn't blocked my calls, which gave me a glimmer of hope. I considered going to his office to talk to him, but I didn't want to cause a scene and risk his job. Instead, I drove around aimlessly for a while, unsure of where to go. Eventually, I checked into a hotel near our apartment, even though I couldn't afford it for long. I spent the night crying, wondering how Cameron had found out the truth. I hoped it was because Ed had told him, not because of hidden cameras in our apartment. The shame I felt was overwhelming. The next day, my mom called, furious after talking to Cameron's mother. She demanded to know what had happened, and I confessed. She yelled and screamed at me for over 45 minutes before hanging up abruptly. My dad expressed his deep disappointment in me too. I asked if I could move back home, and he agreed, but only if I sought professional help, like therapy. I accepted his condition, apologized again, and returned home 11 days later. During this time, I kept trying to contact Cameron, but he never replied. I read some advice suggesting that it's best to give a betrayed partner some space, even though it was tearing me apart inside. When I returned home, it felt like everyone in town knew about our breakup and why it happened. It was a total nightmare. I'm not sure how to reconcile with Cameron. I'm afraid he might never want to talk to me again. I love him deeply, and I know I have to try my best to win him back. No matter what happens, I'll carry the regret of my actions for the rest of my life. I'm back home now, living with my parents, and I'd taken a job as a cashier at a dollar store. It seems like everyone in town is still talking about me, and I can't help feeling incredibly embarrassed. People somehow found out that Ed was the person I cheated with, and they did some online research. To my shock, I discovered that Ed is actually 62 years old, not in his late 40s as I thought. Even worse, he has a criminal record going back 17 years, with articles about his past arrests and trials still available online. I could have easily found all this information with a simple online search, but I was too distracted to do so. I still find it hard to believe how I acted during that time. I feel like a complete fool. Not only did I betray the man I love, but I did it with someone who's far from admirable. I hope the town's gossip will die down in a few months because I can't bear living here much longer. It's taking a heavy toll on my mental well-being. Some days, I contemplate locking myself in my room and not facing the world. My parents are deeply embarrassed by my actions, and they've made it clear that if I ever repeat something like this, they'll disown me without hesitation. They believe I've brought profound shame to the family, which has only intensified my feelings of self-disgust. I've been dealing with severe depression as a result. Throughout this entire ordeal, Cameron has not reached out to me. We haven't exchanged a single word since the night he locked me out of the apartment. I just wish he would pick up the phone and express his anger or any emotion. At this point, all I want is to apologize to him face to face. I've been in therapy for a couple of weeks now, and it's been helpful. My therapist is compassionate but also straightforward. Following her advice, I've refrained from trying to contact Cameron and have started focusing on self-improvement. She pointed out that I've already extended my apologies through text and voicemail, and Cameron is aware of it. But evidently, he wants nothing to do with me at the moment. Over the past week, I've concentrated on my job, maintained a healthy diet, gotten enough rest, and taken long walks. I do feel better, but I still miss my partner. I'm taking each day as it comes, hoping for a reconciliation with Cameron, but also preparing for the possibility that it may not happen. I have no intentions of dating anyone anytime soon, despite receiving requests from 4 customers at the store. My heart and mind are still firmly under Cameron's influence. I don't anticipate providing any further updates unless we manage to reunite. Best wishes, and thank you to all of you. I didn't get paid for my work, but we lived rent-free on our property, and I knew I'd inherit the majority ownership. It was a perfect family setup, and we all loved living here. My oldest was a 21-year-old girl, followed by a 20-year-old boy, a 17-year-old boy, and our youngest, a 15-year-old girl. Life was great, and my marriage with Connie was loving and happy. My job was good, and the farm was thriving. But about 3 years ago, my brother Bill got diagnosed with cancer. He didn't take care of himself well and only sought treatment when his symptoms got unbearable. He went through tough treatments, but he kept working. Sadly, Bill passed away earlier this year, and it was very emotional for all of us. Bill and I were close, and I helped him with various challenges he faced in life. Despite his issues, we loved him unconditionally. In Bill's will, he named me as the executor and left me 100% of his assets, including a bank account with over $70,000. I found something strange though. Bill had set up this account with my youngest son, Joe, as the beneficiary. This confused me because Bill wasn't closer to Joe than my other kids. I wondered why Bill chose Joe, and it made me anxious. One day, I found 2 old photos of my wife, Connie, at Bill's house. They were inappropriate, and they were taken in Bill's bedroom. My world fell apart. I took the evidence to my parents, and they were as shocked and disgusted as I was. I decided to confront Connie. I took her to Bill's house, thinking we were just going to clean up. But when we sat down, I showed her the bank statement and the pictures. She looked at the statement, clearly surprised by the money Bill had saved. I knew there was much more to talk about, but I was devastated, and I needed time to figure out what to do. I asked Connie if she noticed anything odd on the bank statement, and she initially said no, just the amount. but then I urged her to read it aloud from the top. As she read, she saw Bill's name and the payable on death to Joe part, which made her realize that she was caught. I asked her if there was something she needed to confess, and she initially denied it, shaking her head. But after some persistence, she admitted to her affair with Bill 18 years ago. She explained that it was a stupid and selfish mistake that only lasted a couple of weeks. Connie claimed she had distanced herself from Bill since then, only interacting with him when other family members were around. I asked her if Joe was Bill's son, and she said no, she was certain he was mine, emphasizing that even if he wasn't, she considered him mine since I had raised him. I didn't show her any sympathy or comfort and left her to compose herself. After she cleaned up and came home, we slept in the same bed, but I refused her attempts to get close to me. The next day, I decided to divorce her, and I talked to my parents about it. They were shocked and couldn't believe what had happened. Connie begged me not to go through with it, but I was firm in my decision. Later, I met with a lawyer recommended by our farm attorney to begin the divorce process. We discussed the division of our assets and the possibility of spousal support due to Connie's lack of outside work. Money wasn't my main concern. I just wanted the marriage to end. I returned home and informed Connie of the attorney's advice, and she was upset. Then I told her I would talk to our kids about the situation that weekend, starting with Joe. He and I went to a creek on our farm, and I explained the situation to him. He was devastated and worried, especially about whether I would still love him if he wasn't my biological son. I assured him that I would always love him and that the issue was between his mother and me. The divorce was solely due to her affair and had nothing to do with him. We spent a couple of hours talking, and I mentioned that I would speak to his siblings next. After Joe told me he was ready to talk to his siblings, we all gathered by the pool, pretending everything was normal. However, my wife's odd behavior was evident, and our kids picked up on it right away. We spent the afternoon playing games, but the dark secret loomed. It was after dinner when Joe expressed his readiness to talk to his siblings. Unfortunately, they all had plans with friends that evening, so we decided to hold the conversation the next morning. As a family, we attended Sunday church services, returned home, and then I told the kids that I needed to speak with them privately on the back patio. My daughter inquired if their mom would be joining us, and I explained that she would meet with them later, causing some uneasiness among the kids. I shared the news with them, and their shocked reactions turned to disbelief, anger, and sadness. It was tough to see them process the information. I clarified my intention to divorce their mom, and they all started to cry. We had a lengthy conversation, and eventually they understood my decision. My daughter expressed her anger and reluctance to have anything to do with her mother. I informed them about getting DNA tests for each of them to determine their biological parentage, emphasizing that it wouldn't change my love for them, regardless of the results. That evening, their mom met with them to have an emotional conversation. I was outside but could overhear parts of their discussion. The kids expressed their love for her, but made it clear they would never see her the same way and might not forgive her for her actions, which was tough for her to hear. During the divorce process, my wife tried persuading me to stay together and seek counseling daily, but I remained firm. A significant offer was made to purchase the house my family lived in, and we decided to accept, moving out 60 days later. My wife moved to a nearby apartment and struggled with depression, requiring medication. I moved back to my parents' home temporarily and decided to build my dream log cabin on the farm. I now live there with my two youngest kids, while they spend a few nights a week with their mom. My ex-wife wants to reconcile, but I no longer have romantic feelings for her. After all the stress and drama, it turned out that all my kids are biologically mine, but it didn't change my feelings toward my ex-wife. Although I still care about her and want her to be happy, I can't trust her again. Despite everything, I feel content with where I am now and the relationships I have with my kids and my ex-wife. Sharing this story has provided some relief and gratitude for how things turned out, and I wish you all the best of luck.
My wife, a 35-year-old female, and I, a 34-year-old male, share a life together with our 3 kids. However, our marriage has been plagued by long-standing issues that came to a head at the close of 2021. As a result, we decided to separate briefly, but in 2022, we reunited with the condition of attending therapy every 2 weeks for a year. Regrettably, we only managed to sustain the therapy for about 3 to 4 months. Both of us harbored reservations about our therapist, and my wife expressed that she didn't find it beneficial. We mutually decided to discontinue the therapy and began working on our issues independently. The primary reasons behind our therapy were: A. My wife no longer felt any attraction towards me. B. She didn't want any physical contact from me, feeling repelled by my touch, which extended to hugs, kisses, cuddling, or any form of affection. C. She expressed a desire to explore her sexuality with other people, either men or women. We had been together since our early teens and had only ever been with each other. She also wished for solitude, believing she would find happiness on her own. Initially, things seemed to improve, but recently, I stumbled upon an old confession she had written 18 years ago. It revealed an incident where a mutual friend had kissed her. While that was supposed to be the entire story, the confession detailed how much she enjoyed the attention and even initiated a kiss with the friend in a separate room. It hadn't progressed beyond that, but this revelation left me in turmoil. I confronted her about it, and she claimed it was so long ago that she didn't remember it clearly. She reassured me that our marriage had been faithful for the entire time and we had built a life together. I accepted her explanation but acknowledged that it would take some time for me to process it. Despite this, I didn't believe our marriage was in jeopardy. However, recently, she disclosed that a mutual male friend with whom she had been chatting had been expressing his love for her and even made a remark about her appearance. Her response was simply, "Dude, come on," and he apologized. I was disheartened that she hadn't set clear boundaries earlier, especially when he suggested hanging out alone. On our special anniversary, my mood was somber. During our walk, she repeatedly inquired about what was bothering me. Eventually, I expressed my distress about the infidelity situation, her failure to establish clear boundaries, and her lack of effort in planning special activities for our anniversary. She became emotional and tearfully confessed her ongoing desire to explore her sexuality with other people, her enjoyment of the attention she received from other men, and her continued aversion to physical contact with me. She claimed that she had been pretending for a year, even though she didn't want any physical affection from me. She insisted that she didn't want to lose me or the life we had built. As a result, we decided to return to therapy. However, after reflecting on the situation, I'm unsure if I want to continue. I feel like I might be just a safety net, waiting for her to decide between pursuing other relationships or being alone, and I don't believe it's fair for me to be a backup plan in our marriage. I expressed my apologies for the lengthy post, yet I felt it necessary to provide the complete context. Would I be unreasonable to consider a divorce, even though we had agreed to undergo therapy? Frankly, if a partner confessed to feeling repelled or disgusted by my touch, it would be a deal breaker for me. Add to that her desire to explore her sexuality with others. If she's inclined that way, she should pursue it in a different relationship. This situation is clearly causing you immense sadness, and I believe it's time for me to end this relationship. Possibly Zesty Close astutely observes that living with someone who finds the idea of touching me revolting is unbearable. Even if she changes her stance, I don't need justification to change my mind first. Alafa sees her desire as wanting the comfort of a home, me, while not wanting to actually be with me. I become her backup plan. I won't fall for her declarations of love or proposals to try therapy again. Her actions show a lack of respect, which renders any love meaningless. Way's insight echoes this sentiment. She's using me for stability, making her life easier. I deserve better, and she deserves to learn that the grass isn't always greener. The crown and anchors question lingers in my mind. Why am I still in this marriage when my wife finds me physically repulsive? It's time to face the truth that she has been dishonest for a long time. It's clear she's using me, and it's time to end this relationship. I edited my post to address some questions. We both share household responsibilities, including chores, taking care of the kids, and communicating about household tasks. I'm not a neglectful or apathetic husband who sits idly by while my wife watches the kids and takes care of the household. I've always been actively involved in our family life. However, One reason I wanted to discontinue therapy with our previous therapist was due to a concerning incident involving my wife's inappropriate messages with a coworker. While I was at work, I was fixing a backup phone that our kids use when I noticed these messages popping up. I confronted my wife about them, and she initially denied their existence, claiming she had already deleted them. It was only when I revealed that I had seen the messages on the other phone that she apologized and confessed, subsequently ceasing communication with the coworker. However, when I shared this incident with the therapist, she brushed it off and made me feel like it was my fault. I realized she was prioritizing my wife's interests over mine. Furthermore, my wife has always had validation issues, losing her sense of judgment when someone compliments her or gives her attention. Despite trying for 20 years to be enough for her, she seems to hold other people's comments in higher regard. Despite all of these challenges, I can't deny that I love my wife with all my heart. We share 3 children, and the thought of losing 50% of my time with them through shared custody is something I wish to avoid. My wife remains the most beautiful woman I've ever laid eyes on, and she still has the power to make me feel weak. Even after 3 kids and 2 decades together, this is the most difficult decision of my life. Living without her might be necessary for my self-value and self-respect, but it's an incredibly hard decision. The OP provided an update to their post, stating that they received many messages offering advice and interest. They mentioned having read over 1,000 comments over 2 days and sharing a conversation with their wife, which they had written down and asked her to listen to without interruption. They begin the conversation by addressing their wife's previous statements. I don't know what you thought you were going to accomplish by telling me that you were repelled by my touch. You want to explore your sexuality with other men and women, and you want to be alone. I think you thought that by being honest, it was the right and okay thing to do. However, it just showed me how little respect you have for me. I don't believe you realize how insulting and disrespectful everything you said is. You don't consider my feelings at all. You see validation from other men and never set any proper boundaries until I find out or a line has been crossed. I can't remember a time in 20 years where you've said, "Stop, this is inappropriate, and it shouldn't go any further." You allowed a mutual friend to tell you he loved you and liked your ass, and you weren't the one to stop the communication, he was. His therapist could tell the conversation was unhealthy, and I could see it too, but you couldn't. Either you don't respect me enough to put my feelings ahead of your own need for validation, or you simply don't care. I can't fix this, and you don't seem to want to fix this. I've been there for you for 20 years. My love for you has remained unwavering, my affection, my devotion. However, it's evident that you don't share the same sentiment. You believe you're missing out on something and hope that exploring that void in the arms of another person will fill it. But it won't. Instead, it will leave you utterly alone, our family gone, and me gone, because you think the grass might be greener on the other side. I can't fathom how someone with a loving husband, someone who cares, respects, and means the world to them, someone with 3 beautiful kids, a robust support network, good friends, and a loving family, could abandon their entire life for a fleeting experience, thinking it will bring fulfillment. Plain and simple, you're using me. I've become a safety net for you, a place to return to while you explore. But I'm not a fallback option. I'm not a safety net. I am a person who deserves love, touch, romance, and admiration. I deserve respect and reciprocation. I want to be crystal clear. You not telling me about these issues and letting an entire year pass while I thought things were improving is a form of deceit. I'll be attending therapy by myself to understand why I've allowed such abuse and neglect from the person who was supposed to guard and protect me, the one I thought I'd share my life with forever. I'm not asking for a divorce right now, but things need to change. You must attend therapy by yourself. After 6 months of both of us being in therapy, we can consider couples therapy. During this time, you need to stop seeking validation from other men. I don't want to police your conversations, but daily interactions with single men are inappropriate until you can clearly define and enforce boundaries. If these boundaries are broken, you'll have to win me back. Woo me, make me fall in love with you again. I expect romance dates and affection in our daily lives. Rejecting romance because you don't like it and deciding that I don't deserve it is incredibly selfish. I won't accept an open marriage under any circumstances. Monogamy shouldn't be too much to ask. If it is a deal breaker for you, then we can divorce and you can pursue other relationships. I understand that my demands may seem firm, but I'm standing up for myself and what I deserve. I refuse to settle for just enough any longer. If anything I've expressed here leads you to decide it's time to end our relationship, we can move forward with a separation and initiate divorce proceedings. We'll sell the house and reach a mutual 50-50 custody agreement for our children. I want to emphasize that I have never and will never use our children to hurt you, and I am committed to co-parenting with you to the best of my abilities. Despite the stark tone of my words, I want to reiterate that I love you with all my heart and still wish to spend my entire life with you, watching our children grow up together. However, I can no longer accept being an afterthought or playing second fiddle to an imaginary life you might want to pursue. Opie then provides an update, mentioning that one of the recurring things his wife has said in their conversations is her concern about not being enough for him. She feels unsure if she can meet his expectations of what a good, loving wife should be. This time, he reverses the statement, explaining that he knows he's not enough for her. They've had a conversation, and she has agreed to attend therapy as they work on their relationship. While Opie acknowledges that many, if not all, may think he should immediately pursue a divorce, he emphasizes his commitment to giving it his absolute all after 20 years of their relationship. He's unsure whether this effort will lead to a successful outcome, but expresses gratitude to everyone for helping him find the strength to stand up for himself. The update leaves him feeling somewhat flat. The commentator expresses their understanding of Opie's desire to try to salvage the relationship after 20 years, even though they personally find it challenging to believe that much will change. The trust has eroded due to the revelation of feeling repelled by his touch, secretive texting with coworkers, seeking validation from other men, and wanting to explore her sexuality outside the relationship. The trust was lost early on for the commentator, and they would have chosen to leave. They conclude by asking the audience for their thoughts on the situation. Let's move on to another story. Our next one comes from a suggestion on Twitter from Oreo. Thanks for the suggestion. This story is from Skoto1981, who writes, "Just overheard my husband declaring his love to someone else. I'm sitting on my couch, 10 minutes away from my 60th birthday today. My husband and I have been married for 35 years. We were at the doctor's office, as he's undergoing tests due to suspected cancer, making it an emotional day. He's currently on the porch, and I overheard him talking. Wondering who he was speaking to since no one else is here, except his dad in the bedroom, I decided to listen in. I heard him say things like, 'I love you more than anything. You're my soulmate, but we can't start our life together until I know if I have cancer or not, because I don't want to burden you with that.' He even mentioned his biopsy appointment and expressed how much he loved this person. He has never declared his undying love to me or referred to me as his soulmate. I was initially confused, but then it hit me. We currently take care of his 87-year-old dad, who lives with us. We have grown kids, some living nearby and others far away. I'm perplexed about how he plans to start his new life. Will he take his dad with him? Does he intend for me to leave? We have plans for trips and other things, and my head is spinning. I'm not entirely shocked though. 10 years ago, I stumbled upon his adult friend Finder profile. I created my own profile and started conversing with him, and he was making plans with me, not knowing it was me. I confronted him, and after some effort, we worked things out. A few months ago, I saw his Kindle with a webcam on, connected to the adult friend Finder website. I chose not to confront him then, as I didn't have the energy for another confrontation. So I'm here now, contemplating what to do. Do I stay quiet and watch the lies and deceit unfold? Or do I go to the bedroom where he's sleeping and confront him about this life-changing situation? I'm the kind of person who avoids rocking the boat, and I prefer to remain unnoticed. Every man in my life has let me down, from my abusive, alcoholic father to every boyfriend before my first husband and now my current husband. The only man who hasn't hurt me is my son. Right now, it's too early to call my kids, family, or friends. I need to process this and decide how to proceed." One of the top comments on this post offers 3 choices, stating, "As far as I see it, you have 3 choices. First, the path of logic. Quietly consult a divorce lawyer and figure out what you need to do to protect yourself financially if he leaves. Make sure you have your own bank account and start keeping records of your income and expenses if you haven't already done so. If he participates in any household tasks you're unfamiliar with, learn from him so you can handle them independently. Get your affairs in order and plan your next steps in life. The emotional route involves storming into the bedroom, demanding to know who the woman is, insisting on seeing his phone, displaying your passion, reminding him of your contributions to the relationship, demanding he ends the affair, and attending marital counseling. You could make him sleep on the couch or ask him to leave altogether, ensuring he faces the consequences of his actions. The aim is to shake things up, offering a chance for reconciliation. However, bear in mind he might not want to reconcile, which could lead to a quick divorce or him becoming more adept at concealing his affair, maintaining the status quo. Another passive approach involves doing nothing, pretending you didn't hear anything, carrying on as normal, and hoping he won't blindside you with a divorce. Alternatively, you could simply accept whatever fate awaits, adopting an extremely passive stance due to the emotional strain. Raven responds, suggesting another option: leave, then consult a lawyer. Kate proposes a more assertive approach, advising you to relinquish all the responsibilities he placed on you, stop caring for his elderly father, divide the bank accounts, and serve him with divorce papers immediately. Kate doesn't recommend waiting to find out about his cancer diagnosis, as he believes you should prioritize your well-being and financial security. Hio echoes a similar sentiment, pointing out the double standard in his behavior. If he has cancer, he's willing to burden you with his illness, but if he's healthy, he'll abandon you for someone else. Hio emphasizes the unfairness of this situation and suggests filing for divorce promptly without confronting him first. A more violent reaction is mentioned by another commenter, expressing a strong emotional response to the betrayal. Money Print offers a harsh but pragmatic perspective. Confront him and leave, regardless of his cancer diagnosis. Money Print argues that you shouldn't be burdened by his infidelity and that he doesn't deserve your patience and loyalty. In a small update, you share your response to the situation. After a sleepless night filled with inner turmoil, you couldn't contain your emotions any longer. You confronted him, expressing your decision to end the marriage. The logistics of who goes where are yet to be determined, but the marriage is officially over. Despite the exhaustion, you find solace in your decision. The commentator expresses gratitude for the overwhelming support received from the community and appreciates the involvement of the readers. They acknowledge the impact of the audience's love, support, and time. The story ends with a note of gratitude and the hope to see the readers in the next installment.
In my formative years, my bond with my mother was unbreakable. We shared countless moments, from movie nights to weekend baking sessions. However, as I matured, our relationship underwent a seismic shift when my mother remarried. Suddenly, everything seemed to unravel. Her new husband brought his own children into the picture, crowding our already cramped two-bedroom apartment. Space became a luxury, and in an attempt to accommodate everyone, my mother made a heart-wrenching decision. She packed my belongings into trash bags and discarded them. The sight of my cherished memories reduced to refuse left me utterly devastated. My eyes fell upon the remnants of my past life. Photo albums, trophies, posters, and mementos that once adorned my walls. It was a painful realization that all I held dear had been callously tossed aside. I felt a profound sense of betrayal. How could my mother erase my existence, my accomplishments, my treasures? Fueled by a mix of anger and desperation, I confronted her, demanding an explanation for her cruel actions. In a fit of rage, I hurled hurtful words at her, questioning her choices and priorities. Regret washed over me, but at that moment, my anguish drowned out reason. In the aftermath of our heated confrontation, I was consumed by a whirlwind of emotions. The house that had once been my sanctuary now felt hostile and unwelcoming. Determined not to surrender my rightful place, I retrieved my discarded belongings from the trash. With unwavering resolve, I reclaimed my space in the apartment, refusing to be displaced by my mother's new family. As I defiantly carried my belongings back into the apartment, I saw shock and disbelief etched on my mother's face. She tried to protest, insisting that I couldn't simply reclaim what was lost. Yet, I remained resolute, That house held the echoes of my entire life, and I wouldn't allow my mother's new family to strip me of my home. Upon returning to my room, I fervently unpacked my belongings, determined to restore the order and familiarity that had been ruthlessly disrupted. My mother, standing in the doorway, pleaded with me to stop, but my anger overshadowed any empathy I might have felt. I couldn't allow her to stand in my way. When she attempted to enter my sanctuary, I forcibly pushed her out and slammed the door shut, a gesture of defiance that startled even me. It was an unprecedented hostility directed at my own mother, but I felt she had abandoned me, choosing her new family over the bond we once shared. After that incident, communication between us became strained, laced with bitterness. I knew my actions had wounded her, but I couldn't summon the compassion to care. The house crackled with tension, aggravated by my stepfather's constant disparaging remarks about my presence in the house. I grew increasingly agitated, feeling my patience wear thin by the day. The breaking point arrived when my stepfather audaciously claimed my room for his children. I was incredulous. This man had already stripped away everything I held dear, and now he sought to take my last refuge. I confronted him, vehemently asserting that he couldn't barge in and seize my space. He dismissed my protests, citing my mother's agreement to his plan, and I seethed at the thought of my mother betraying me once more. Our confrontation escalated into a heated exchange of insults. I lashed out, labeling him a nobody who couldn't provide for his family without taking from others. In response, he accused me of being a selfish brat unable to accept change. In the end, I found myself defeated, my mother siding with him, urging me to compromise and make sacrifices for the sake of the family. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I had already sacrificed too much. Fueled by anger and desperation, I threatened my mother and stepfather, vowing to teach them a lesson. Their shocked expressions didn't deter me. I stormed back to my room, slamming the door behind me, feeling utterly powerless and alone. Amidst my despair, a memory flickered to life. The two-bedroom apartment belonged to my paternal grandmother. She had entrusted it to my parents when they first moved to the city. In moments of desperation, she had always been my pillar of support, filling the gaps my mother couldn't. I picked up my phone, dialing her number. When she answered, I poured out the tale of my mother and stepfather's betrayal, seeking solace and guidance from the one person who had never let me down. I recounted the entire ordeal to my grandmother, explaining how my belongings had been discarded once again and how they were now attempting to take away my room. My grandmother's fury was palpable. Despite being out of the city, she promised to return in 2 days and confront my mother and stepfather, making it clear that they couldn't mistreat me without consequences. Relief flooded over me. For the first time in weeks, I felt supported, knowing I had someone willing to fight for me. As I hung up the phone, I anxiously awaited her arrival, uncertain about what lay ahead but hopeful that change was on the horizon. When the doorbell rang, I hurried to answer it. My grandmother stood there, her expression fierce, eyes ablaze with anger. She had always been my protector, and I knew she wouldn't allow anyone to harm me. I had held my ground for 2 days, refusing to let them take my room. As soon as she entered the apartment, she spotted my mother and stepfather, shock etched on her faces. Without warning, she slapped my mother hard, a sudden and shocking display of violence. My mother stumbled back, clutching her cheek. When my stepfather tried to speak, my grandmother swiftly struck him on the chest, his face draining of color as he realized the strength of the force he was dealing with. My grandmother scanned the small apartment, taking in every detail. She then turned to my mother and stepfather, announcing that she was the owner of the apartment and that I was her granddaughter. Fear gripped them as they comprehended the gravity of the situation. My grandmother lectured them sternly about their mistreatment of me, her words cutting through the tension in the room. A profound sense of relief washed over me. For the first time since my mother's remarriage, I felt someone was truly on my side, fighting for my cause. The air hung heavy with tension as my grandmother's stern voice echoed through the apartment. My mother and stepfather, seething with anger and indignation, were put in their place. But my grandmother wasn't finished. "You two should be ashamed of yourselves," she declared, her voice unwavering, demanding accountability for their actions. My grandmother's scolding cut through the room like a sharp blade. "How dare you treat your own daughter this way? Throw her out of her room. It's a disgrace," she admonished, her voice filled with righteous anger. When my mother attempted to speak, my grandmother silenced her with a raised hand. "No, I don't want to hear it. Pack up your things, then take your stepchildren and get out of my apartment. I don't want to see either of you again until you learn to treat your own blood with respect." Her words hit my mother and stepfather like a wrecking ball. They stared at her, mouths agape, unable to comprehend the gravity of the situation. My mother tried to protest, explaining they had nowhere else to go, but my grandmother was resolute. With a look of fierce determination in her eyes, she stood her ground. "I don't care where you go, but you can't stay here. You can't just throw away your daughter's things and expect everything to be okay. You need to learn how to be a better mother and a better person." My mother and stepfather seemed on the verge of arguing, but my grandmother shifted her gaze to me. With tenderness and concern, she assured me, "You're the only one who's staying here. I won't let them hurt you anymore. You're always welcome in my home." A whirlwind of emotions washed over me, relief, gratitude, and a twinge of guilt. My grandmother had taken a drastic step, kicking my mother and stepfather out of her home. Yet, I couldn't help but feel a sense of happiness at finally having someone in my corner. As my mother and stepfather hastily packed their belongings, their faces contorted with anger and disbelief, my grandmother turned to me and offered a small smile. She enveloped me in a warm embrace and said, "Don't worry, my dear. Everything is going to be okay now." It was a moment of triumph, orchestrated by my fiercely protective grandmother who saw the injustice and took decisive action to make things right. Despite the turmoil, I found solace in her unwavering support, knowing I wasn't alone in this battle. I toiled day in and day out, pouring my sweat and effort into my work, yet my contributions went unnoticed. My family seemed to revel in spending the money I earned, but there was never any appreciation, only a spotlight on my shortcomings. My sister, for reasons I could never fathom, was consistently jealous of me. She was indolent, uninterested in work, and conveniently blamed me for her own misdeeds. My parents, in turn, readily believed her accusations, scolding me without hesitation. Life was far from fair in our household. Each time an incident occurred, my parents would remind me that I was older, expected to be more mature and responsible, while she was allowed to get away with her behavior, creating a toxic atmosphere. This had become the norm in my life, a scenario perhaps not uncommon, but what followed was truly extraordinary. One day, a heated argument erupted between my sister and me when she took my favorite dress without permission and ruined it. She displayed no remorse, dismissing it as a trivial item. However, that dress held sentimental value. It was the first thing I had ever purchased for myself, with my hard-earned money. When I asserted that I wasn't her caretaker, she retorted that the family would always love her more, and she'd never have to work a day in her life. I didn't grasp the full meaning of her words until a few weeks later, when she stood before me, proudly announcing her teenage pregnancy. The family's reaction to this life-altering news was strikingly different from their response to my minor mistakes. It was glaringly evident that, regardless of her actions, they would unconditionally support her. Although they displayed momentary displeasure, they eventually embraced the idea, assuming it was my duty to not only take care of my sister, but also her unborn child. When I inquired about the baby's father, she evaded the question. On further pressing, she burst into tears, silencing any further inquiries. The burden of responsibility fell squarely on my shoulders, while my own needs and well-being were utterly disregarded by the very people who were supposed to care for me. I attempted to reason with them, but it became abundantly clear that my words fell on deaf ears. The breaking point came when my sister openly admitted, right in front of me, that she intentionally got pregnant to make my life a living nightmare. All the emotions I had suppressed surged to the surface, yet arguing with them seemed as futile as arguing with the wind. So I kept my peace for approximately 2 months, fervently seeking a job that would whisk me away from this suffocating environment. To my delight, it happened. I secured a job 800 miles away with excellent pay. However, the moment I shared the news of my move, my family's reaction was far from supportive. They expressed their anger, bombarding me with unnecessary questions about my responsibility and the baby's future. I couldn't comprehend why I, the sibling, was being held accountable for my sister's choices. While I was more than willing to assist them financially, their expectations had crossed a line. I couldn't sacrifice my entire life to be the sole caregiver for my sister's child. Despite my family's relentless efforts to sway my decision, from initial sweetness to outright yelling, I stood my ground. They resorted to emotional manipulation and gaslighting, trying to make me question my own judgment. I couldn't help but wonder if this was truly my fault, despite the fact that I had always gone above and beyond to help my family without expecting anything in return. Thank you for the supportive comments. Your encouragement means a lot. To those questioning why my teenage sister would intentionally get pregnant, expecting me to shoulder the entire responsibility, I'm just as puzzled. The most ironic part is that the father of the child was still in the picture, yet nobody expected him to step up. He was there, having lunch with my family, laughing and socializing. My family had this bizarre notion that my sister and her boyfriend were too young to handle such a significant responsibility, leaving me to foot the financial burden. I couldn't fathom why I should be responsible for their choices. They were perfectly capable of finding jobs and devising a plan to support their child if they chose to keep it. Why should I sacrifice my life for this mess? I have no clue about this guy's parents or what my sister is really up to. All I know is they're doing everything in their power to demotivate me, hoping I'll just give in and stay here. Hello, I'm updating after a whole 45 days, which I know is super late, but I have so much to share. I would have updated yesterday, but I faced some tech issues. You're talking to the new tech person from my family company. Just kidding. That wasn't a great first impression, but I'm proud of myself for landing this position. Speaking of the devil, my sister is apparently in her second trimester, indicating that she was pregnant long before she announced it, and intentionally so. My family was furious when they heard I was moving and tried everything possible to stop me, even attempting to create a scene at the airport. The audacity. They're acting like I'm some neglectful mother leaving her newborn behind, while the real mother, my sister, is being treated like a typical teenager who found herself in a difficult situation. Every time I think the drama is over, more keeps coming. My family is unhinged. I can't believe how unbothered they are about this situation, behaving as if my choice to work 800 miles away is just a rebellious phase. Adding to the chaos, my mom called me yesterday, suggesting I should adopt the baby once it's born and pose as the mother so my sister can restart her education without judgment for being a teen mom. It seems like everything my family does is for her. Just when I thought they couldn't do worse, they proved me wrong. I was so fed up that I told my mom straight away that I might not even want to come back, let alone adopt the kid. I've been clear that I won't take responsibility for my sister or her child, something I've repeated for a long time. Of course, my mom dismissed everything. Today, a friend called me, asking about my supposed pregnancy, a rumor spread by my family. I've decided to put an end to this once and for all. I made an announcement on my social media page, exposing them completely. Yes, my family thinks I went overboard, but I simply don't care anymore. Am I the villain for this? I think not. I believe all of you are entitled to your opinion, but the way you wrote it, it's clear you'd never help your sister anyway. It's unfortunate that she's also problematic. But I can't blame just one person. I don't know how much patience God gives you all. If this situation is causing you so much trouble, cut them off. You can choose the middle ground. Your family has always treated you wrongly, so I'd say it's well-deserved. Why would you take care of the baby anyway? It's insane. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to today's stories. Remember, if you have a story to share, you can email us using the address in the description. If you'd like to be featured, please let us know. and we'll pin your comment at the top. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps the channel. We'll see you in the next one. In order to provide some background, my mother-in-law is the type of person who enjoys flaunting even the smallest achievements in the most extravagant manner. Despite lacking any sophistication in her own life, she goes out of her way to pretend that she is the talk of our society. One glaring example of her absurd behavior is the monthly club party she hosts. To clarify, there is no actual club. She merely invites her friends and co-workers for an evening gathering because they share the same profession. She refers to them as her fellow aita. This peculiar ritual has been ongoing for quite some time. During these gatherings, all they do is brag about their accomplishments and achievements from the past month. Given the context, you can imagine how eager my mother-in-law was to announce that my grandfather had arranged a destination wedding for me, complete with a 6-day stay package. This was his generous gift to me, as I had shared my dream wedding plans with him on numerous occasions. Considering my limited budget and the size of the venue, I had meticulously curated a guest list. My husband and I had discussed the situation beforehand, and both agreed to prioritize our guests. Coming from a large family, narrowing down the guest list was challenging, but I managed to invite 22 people, while my husband invited 18 of our close friends and family members whom we regularly interacted with. We were all set to send out the invitations when my mother-in-law unexpectedly showed up at our house late one evening, uninvited and unwelcome. It was already 9 p.m., and her presence irritated me from the start. She demanded that we make changes to the guest list. I couldn't fathom why she believed she had a say in the people I wanted to invite to my own wedding. My husband, to my dismay, supported her stance, which raised immediate concerns for me. I inquired about the changes she wanted, and she mentioned that she had already promised a few of her work friends an invitation. These friends, she claimed, were part of her Aita Geeks group. I politely informed her that there was no room left on the guest list, as every invitee was someone we had a close relationship with and interacted with regularly. I sought support from my husband, but he avoided my gaze and sided with his mother. Despite explaining the situation to her, she insisted that I make adjustments. Frustrated, I showed her the guest list, emphasizing that every individual on it was someone intimately connected to our lives, and there was simply no way to exclude them. She then suggested removing my cousin's sister, whom I had lived with for 7 years after college. Her reasoning was that my cousin had moved to Birmingham recently, and it would be inconvenient for her to travel to the States. My patience wore thin, and I asked my husband to reason with her, but he continued to support her perspective, emphasizing the importance of inviting her chosen guests, especially after she had shared details about the destination wedding with them. I tightened my lips in frustration, feeling utterly lost on how to reason with my own fiancé, who was clearly being irrational. My anger boiled over, prompting me to storm out of the room. The following day, I woke up with a resolve. I would give them a taste of their own medicine. If they could be so thoughtless about my wedding, all for the sake of saving face in front of their colleagues, then I could be equally inconsiderate. I dialed my grandpa and recounted the events from the previous night. When I finished explaining, I made it clear that I wouldn't waste my energy trying to make them see reason. Instead, I decided to strip away the main attraction from their little charade. I informed my grandpa, whom I love dearly, that I was removing him and grandma from the guest list, along with my dad's brother and his family. I also asked him to resign the gift he was giving me since he was no longer invited. Thankfully, my grandfather understood my intention and supported me without harboring any resentment. When I sent the updated guest list to my mother-in-law and fiancé, they were taken aback. I calmly informed them that those were the only individuals I could remove, but in doing so, we had lost our wedding venue. I made sure my fiancé understood the urgency of finding a new venue within the next 2 months or postponing the wedding. Additionally, there was the hassle of reprinting the invitation cards and arranging accommodations for out-of-town guests. I wanted both of them to grasp that none of this predicament would have arisen if it weren't for the generosity of someone in my family who had funded half of our wedding. However, I didn't expect them to suddenly start apologizing for their actions. My mother-in-law came over again, expressing remorse for coercing me into altering the guest list. She implored me to call my grandpa and invite him back, asking him not to cancel the hotel reservation or make any changes. I couldn't help but wonder why she was apologizing now, after she had already achieved what she wanted. She had made a commitment to her colleagues, and now they were receiving invitations. This weighed heavily on her, and she vocalized her frustration, noting that inviting them wouldn't make sense unless the wedding was at a destination. She emphasized that a non-destination wedding would be ordinary and uninteresting to others. Upon hearing her express these thoughts, my husband finally admitted that he regretted supporting her decision. However, I wasn't ready to let his actions off the hook so easily. I reminded him that he shouldn't need extreme measures for him to support me in obvious situations. Although he apologized once again, I made it clear that my decision was final. It was a done deal, and even if I were to reinvite my grandpa, we wouldn't get back his incredibly generous gift. Was I being an angel for standing my ground? I recognized that, ultimately, the wedding was mine, and I should focus on myself. Yet, I couldn't help but feel a bit petty about not reversing my decision. Did this make me a bad person? However, my mother-in-law wasn't finished causing problems for us. As I mentioned in my previous post, I had no intention of asking my grandpa to reinstate his gift. This decision visibly upset my mother-in-law to the point where she began a habit of calling my fiancé every other day. She portrayed me as an ungrateful troublemaker seeking revenge. While, yes, I had taken certain actions that made me feel good, her labeling me ungrateful when she was responsible for this situation felt like too much. But it didn't end there. She went a step further, advising my fiancé to reconsider his life decisions, insinuating that what I had done was just the beginning and that his life would be this way if he married me. During one of these conversations, my fiancé was speaking on speakerphone, and I overheard these hurtful words. I was grateful for this transparency because I knew that my fiancé typically concealed anything that could potentially create discord in our relationship. He did tell his mother that she had crossed the line, but he didn't confront her more assertively. It's his relationship with his mother, and I understand that I can't ask him to sever ties with her just because she dislikes me. However, I am aware that if her interference continues, I might reach a breaking point, as I can't imagine enduring this for the rest of my life. Today, I had a heart-to-heart with my grandpa, sharing the news about the new wedding venue we had secured. While it didn't align with the vision I cherished my whole life, it was still a beautiful place, and I found happiness in it. I reassured him that he was invited again, and his laughter warmed my heart. My gratitude and love for him overwhelmed me. He had consistently supported me in everything I did, and he continued to do so now. Confronting my husband about my mother-in-law's escalating behavior became necessary. Our conversation delved into the awkwardness certain situations had created and the pain they had caused. In the end, my husband promised to address the issue with his mother and clarify her role in our lives. I hoped for a smooth journey forward, devoid of any more drama. Finally, the wedding day arrived, and I am now officially married. Despite the unexpected turns, the wedding was a thing of beauty, and my happiness knew no bounds. I couldn't help but smile when I noticed my mother-in-law sulking in a corner with her work friends, whom she had invited. In a surprising turn of events, my grandpa gifted us a house as a wedding present, a joint gesture from him and my uncles. In the grand scheme of things, I am just thrilled to embark on this new chapter of my life with my husband. I wanted to share this update with all of you who have been a part of this journey in your own way. It infuriates me when people believe they have the audacity to dictate how someone should get married or whom they should invite. It's high time someone reminded your mother-in-law that her time to influence these decisions is over. If she wants to flaunt, she can plan her own event in the future. You should firmly tell her to back off and leave you in peace. Are you absolutely certain about marrying that guy? Anyone with an ounce of insight would have seen through the manipulative game your mother-in-law was playing, and yet he supported her. You're not clueless, but perhaps you should scrutinize your life choices more closely. On a personal note, I live in Queensland while my family resides in New South Wales. Recently, my parents and my 27-year-old sister decided to invite themselves to my house for a week-long holiday after their cruise got canceled. Frankly, I wasn't thrilled about them staying for such an extended period, especially considering I'm pregnant and already juggling the responsibilities of caring for a 2-year-old. To complicate matters, our house isn't spacious enough to accommodate multiple guests. I have only one spare queen-size bed, which my parents were occupying. My sister, however, opted to sleep on my couch. She could have shared my bed with me since my husband is away for work, but her snoring and my constant nudges to roll over didn't make it a viable option. After 2 days of their stay, during dinner on the second night, my dad dropped a bombshell. He casually mentioned that they had invited my sister's boyfriend of just 5 weeks to fly up and stay with us for the entire weekend. He had already booked a ticket and would be arriving on Friday morning at 9 a.m. I had never met my sister's boyfriend. After all, he had only been part of the family for 5 weeks. What infuriated me was that no one bothered to consult me beforehand. Moreover, I didn't have the space for him to stay comfortably. He would have had to sleep on my couch, and my sister would either need to share the couch or my bed with him. The idea of a stranger sleeping in my house while my 2-year-old son was in his own room was unsettling. In sheer frustration, I called my husband, and together we decided to firmly refuse the arrangement. We believed their behavior in inviting a stranger into our home was completely unacceptable. When I called my sister to communicate our decision while I was at work, my mother exploded in anger. She berated me, questioning my judgment and accusing me of doubting their ability to judge someone's character. According to her, they wouldn't invite someone into our house who couldn't be trusted, even though they had met him fewer than 10 times. Eventually, they hung up on me, hastily packed their belongings, and left my house. Later, they sent me a text message claiming that my husband had manipulated my thoughts against them, and that they were leaving not because they were wrong, but because I had been an inhospitable host. According to them, I had become a terrible person since being with my husband for the past 10 years. 3 days passed, and they attempted to call me, acting as if nothing had transpired. Their inability to comprehend my reaction left me utterly baffled. I am left wondering if anyone can shed light on their perspective and help me make sense of this situation. Am I overreacting? I don't think so. I believe I was being a responsible parent, not an unreasonable person. I didn't invite them, and I certainly don't have a serial obligation to be a gracious host to a family that essentially invaded my home. To top it off, they invited a 4th person, a complete stranger, to stay without my knowledge or consent. Their entitlement is baffling. It's almost like they can't stand the fact that I've grown up and am making decisions without seeking their approval. This is the moment to establish boundaries. In my response, I made it clear that I'm not a terrible host because I didn't invite them in the first place. They invited themselves. I generously accommodated them despite the disruption to our usual routines. However, inviting another person into my home without my consent was completely unacceptable. Their tantrum when I refused to cave in and their subsequent decision to leave for alternative accommodation, all the while attacking my character, means there will be a new set of rules before I consider hosting them again. I won't be going to hang out with them after the immature behavior they displayed in my house. I've had enough of their inappropriate actions for now, and I've decided to limit my contact with them until I feel I can face them again. They crossed a line by inviting someone I've never met into my home without my approval. They didn't ask, they simply informed me that it was happening. The fact that they mentioned my seemingly good mood indicates they were aware it wasn't a good idea. They assumed I would be a pushover and allow it. I'm standing up for myself and the safety of my children, and I know I'm not in the wrong here. I'm a 33-year-old woman, currently 5 months pregnant, while my 35-year-old husband is away on a business trip, set to return next month. This is my first pregnancy, and recently, I've been required to continue working at the office. When I first met my husband, he was incredibly skinny, and his eating habits were restricted due to his mother's cooking. She avoided spices, sauces, herbs, and even salt, sugar, and pepper, believing this bland approach was healthier. My husband grew accustomed to this tasteless diet, but when he tried my cooking, he realized there was a world of flavor beyond his mother's limited recipes. One Wednesday, I indulged my curry craving and made a large batch. While I usually had pre-prepared meals in the freezer, this time, I gave in to the temptation. I left the extra portions in the fridge. On that day, my in-laws unexpectedly visited, having a spare key in case of emergencies. When I returned home, ready to enjoy my curry, I found it replaced by a dish made by my mother-in-law, who had thrown my meal away, claiming it tasted spoiled. Unable to stomach her cooking in my pregnant state, I discreetly gave the unwanted food to a homeless person. However, someone witnessed my act of kindness and informed my in-laws. Suddenly, I found myself bombarded with accusatory messages, even from my mother-in-law. My husband supported me, but now I'm questioning if I overreacted. Honestly, OP, it seems like your in-laws are trying to control your life. Their invasion of your home, even when you're not there, is a huge red flag. And while the focus seems to be on your mother-in-law throwing away your food, the real issue here is the lack of boundaries. Setting firm limits with your in-laws is essential before your child is born. Consider changing the locks and installing security cameras to maintain your privacy and peace of mind. Remember, your home is your space, and you deserve to feel safe and respected within it.
Mama hasn't eaten and she's collapsed. I received an urgent SOS from my 6-year-old granddaughter, who lives with my daughter and her husband. Her desperate call left me stunned. Mama had shared her own food with me, so she hadn't eaten anything herself. "Grandma, come quick. Help." My granddaughter's message was frantic, saying that my daughter could only moan weakly and seemed barely able to speak. I grabbed my car keys, praying for my daughter's safety, and rushed out of the house. What I found when I arrived was beyond anything I had prepared for. My name is Wendy, and I'm a 65-year-old housewife. Since my husband, who was 5 years older than me, passed away 2 years ago, I've been living alone in our now overly spacious home. Thanks to an inheritance from him and my own savings from working until I turned 60, I have no financial worries. My only daughter, Holly, is married and lives about an hour away with her husband. The highlights of my life are their occasional visits, especially when they bring my granddaughter, Lynn. After Holly graduated from university, she moved to Paris to pursue a career fueled by her passion for the French language. There she met Ted, who was working for an international company. They married and eventually returned to the United States. Once back, Holly chose to become a full-time homemaker to support Ted, and soon after, they welcomed their daughter, Lynn. Ted graduated from a prestigious university and now works for a leading tire company, which gives him an elite status, though he has faced many challenges along the way. His father struggled with job stability, frequently changing positions, which put a strain on their finances. Ted's mother worked part-time but didn't contribute significantly to the household income. Holly mentioned this hesitantly, suggesting that Ted's parents had unconventional approaches to work. Despite this, Ted was determined to improve his circumstances. He pursued his education with dedication, earning scholarships and working part-time to support himself. His hard work has earned him Holly's deep respect. Ted is committed to ensuring that Lynn doesn't face the same struggles he did. He is determined to save money and provide her with the freedom to choose her own path. She described him as a warm-hearted person. While it might seem self-serving to praise my own daughter, Holly truly is bright and kind-hearted. She has a good relationship with Ted, even though his parents are somewhat unconventional. Lynn has been growing up happily, and I had no cause for concern. However, there was a moment when I sensed something was wrong with Holly. It was when Lynn was 4 years old. During one of their visits, Holly appeared unusually drained. I asked, "What's wrong? You look pale. Are you feeling unwell, or is something bothering you?" "Well, there's a small concern," Holly admitted. She had been sending $700 a month to Ted's financially struggling parents, but they had recently asked for more without Ted knowing. It turns out my father-in-law had quit his job again. "That's troubling. It's challenging for just you and Ted to bear this burden," I said. Holly wanted to save money for Lynn's future, but it was becoming difficult with the ongoing financial support for her in-laws. She considered getting a job, but Ted had told her, "I often go on business trips, so I prefer you stay with Lynn. I want to support my parents since they're family, but I'm worried about how long we can sustain this situation." Hearing this, I felt uneasy and somewhat doubtful. I considered how I might assist and shared my idea with Ted. To my surprise, he welcomed the suggestion and agreed without hesitation. I was relieved at the time, but things didn't go as smoothly as hoped. 2 years later, a new issue emerged. Ted was assigned to work abroad and would be stationed there alone. His parents, concerned about Holly and Lynn managing on their own, proposed that they all move in together. Though Ted wanted to respect Holly's wishes, his parents' insistence made it difficult for her to refuse. Consequently, they decided to live together for the year until Ted's return. Knowing the challenges Holly had faced with her in-laws, I made it a point to stay in regular contact and check on her. "It's okay. My father-in-law's new job seems to have a good environment. It might work out this time, and since Ted helped him find it, that's a positive sign." Despite her reassurance, a mother's intuition, or whatever you might call it, told me that something was off with Holly's tone. Then communication from her abruptly ceased. I tried reaching out multiple times, but all I got were voicemails and no replies. After 6 months of Ted being away, I finally managed to reconnect with Holly. "Hello, Holly. I'm relieved to finally get through. Summer is almost over. How are you doing?" "I'm fine. I was hoping you and Lynn would visit during the summer vacation." "Mom, I'm sorry. We've been really busy. I need to go now. I'll talk to you later." Wait, but before I could say more, the call abruptly ended. Holly's voice had sounded noticeably less upbeat. "What's going on, Holly? I haven't seen you in over 6 months. Are you both really okay?" My anxiety grew, and I realized I couldn't wait any longer. Just then, an unexpected call came through from Holly's phone. "Mom doesn't have any food, and she's collapsed." The distressed voice of my granddaughter, Lynn, came through the line. "Lynn, what's happening?" I asked urgently. "Mom gave her food to me, so she hasn't eaten anything. Grandma, please come help us." From the tearful voice on the phone, I could tell Holly was exhausted and struggling to communicate. "Are there any adults around, like Grandpa or Grandma? If they find out I called, I'll be in trouble," Lynn said. That's when I recalled what Holly had mentioned. She had taught Lynn how to use her cell phone and delete the call history, so Lynn could expose the situation to Holly's in-laws if needed. "Hold on, I'm on my way," I said, telling Lynn to stay somewhere safe. I quickly drove to the in-laws' house, my heart racing. "Holly, I'm coming." As I drove, tears streamed down my face. I was filled with guilt for not realizing the situation sooner and seething with anger toward Holly's in-laws. What have they done to my precious daughter and granddaughter? I'll never forgive them. Fueled by my anger, I pressed the accelerator harder. When I arrived at the in-laws' house, I rang the doorbell, but there was no immediate response. After repeatedly pressing the button, a voice finally answered. "Why are you ringing so much? Who is it?" "I'm Holly's mother." "What? You didn't give any notice. Why are you here?" It was clear Holly's father-in-law was surprised and hesitant to come to the door. "I'm sorry for the unexpected visit, but I need to see Holly. May I come in?" "No. Holly and Lynn aren't here. Go home." "I know they're here. Is there another reason you're not letting me in?" "Enough. Don't come back." Just then, a deep voice resonated from behind me. Before I could react, a man appeared in front of me. That voice, could it be? I heard sounds of movement from inside the house, and the front door opened to reveal a stunned father-in-law. "Boss, what are you doing here?" The man was the CEO of the company where Holly's father-in-law worked. After learning about the in-laws' financial demands from Holly, I had taken action discreetly. Without informing Holly, I reached out to Ted and introduced him to a company run by an old friend of mine. I wanted Holly's father-in-law to find employment there and achieve financial independence. The CEO, understating my requests, hired him under favorable conditions. To avoid any gratitude, I kept my connection with the CEO confidential, asking both Ted and the CEO to do the same. Sensing something was wrong after the earlier call, I contacted the CEO, and we rushed over together. The CEO said, "I'm here to speak with you. Let me in," and walked into the in-laws' home. The father-in-law stood there, stunned and speechless, as I tried to follow. Holly's mother-in-law emerged from a room and blocked my path. "You have no right to come in." The CEO quickly countered, "No, she's with me." The in-laws appeared visibly shaken and terrified. "Grandma, over here. Help mommy," Lynn's voice called out urgently. At that moment, Lynn rushed over and tugged at my hand. "Lynn, you become so skinny." I noticed that my granddaughter looked much more gaunt than the last time I had seen her. Before I could voice my concern, Lynn urgently guided me towards the back of the house, leading me to a storage room under the stairs. "Holly, in a place like this?" I quickly opened the door and gasped in shock and sorrow. There inside the dimly lit room was my emaciated daughter, Holly. "Mom," Holly murmured with drowsy eyes and tears streaming down her face. I gripped her frail hand tightly. "I'm so relieved you're okay. Lynn told me you'd collapsed. We need to get you to a doctor right away." As I gently tried to lift Holly, the CEO stepped in to help. "She doesn't need to see a doctor. Given her condition, are you really sure about that?" "We haven't done anything wrong," I responded, concerned. "Liars, Mom always worked hard while you both just relaxed. You only gave her a small amount of food, and she even gave her own portion to me." From a recent call with my granddaughter, I learned that since moving in together, Holly had been forced to handle all the household chores from morning till night, like a servant. Despite Holly's efforts to please what she thought were her beloved husband's parents, they criticized her relentlessly. They complained about her cooking, her cleaning, and her parenting. They punished her by cutting back her meals and would say, "If you can't do things properly, you belong in the storeroom." They even confiscated her mobile phone, purse, and bank book. Whenever she protested, they threatened to harm Lynn. I was horrified to discover this. Holly was enduring this abuse with her already limited food further reduced, all for Lynn's sake. Overwhelmed by constant unjust criticism and suffering from physical and mental exhaustion, Holly was unable to think clearly. "Why are you acting like the victim? We only scolded her a little. This is a serious matter. She could be in a life-threatening condition. I intend to get a medical report." "Don't exaggerate. Stay out of our family matters. It's a new. Holly is my cherished daughter, and so is Lynn. I can forgive you for what you've done to them." At that moment, Holly, clearly exhausted, suddenly broke down in tears. "Mom, please stop. I'm afraid Ted will hate me." "Holly, did he say something to you?" "He said he'd leave me and stop providing financial support." "That's strange. I just spoke with Ted, and he mentioned that he's been sending $3,500 every month." At this revelation, the defiant expressions of my in-laws shifted to visible anxiety. "It looks like you've been keeping the money Ted sent Holly for yourselves. You've been deceiving everyone. Does this mean the rumor about Ted having another girlfriend is also false? How could you drive Holly to this point? I will never forgive you for this." At that moment, the sound of the ambulance sirens approached, and the CEO went outside to direct the paramedics. As soon as he was out of sight, my father-in-law's demeanor shifted dramatically, and he gave me a cold, piercing stare. "It's our son's money. Naturally, we have the right to use it. There's no reason for us to give it to a daughter-in-law like you. If you can't accept that, you should take the child and leave." "So, this is why you've been harassing me almost every day, isn't it?" "Did you hear that, Ted?" I spoke into my smartphone. I was on a call with Holly's husband, Ted, and relaying every word his parents were saying. "What are you talking about?" I turned the smartphone screen towards the in-laws with the speakerphone on. "I will never forgive you for what you've done to my beloved family, my wife and child. I'm cutting off all support from now on." Ted's voice was filled with anger, and his parents could only tremble in response. My father-in-law bowed deeply towards the phone. "Ted, I'm so sorry. We needed the money and didn't mean any harm. This isn't a joke. I'll be home soon, so be prepared. The CEO, returning with the paramedics, added sternly, "There's no point in keeping such a ruthless man employed. I brought him in for Wendy's sake, but he's been a disappointment." Upon hearing this, the in-laws immediately shifted their demeanor, bowing and apologizing profusely to me. "We apologize for how we've treated Holly. We're struggling financially and desperately need your help. Could you please talk to Ted and the CEO on our behalf?" "You must be joking. How can I forgive you? I'm reporting everything to the police." As I watched the paramedics carefully place Holly onto a stretcher, I offered a reassuring smile to my granddaughter. "Lynn, you did wonderfully. You saved your mom. We'll go to the hospital now, and then we can rest at Grandma's house." "Thank you, Grandma." At the hospital, both my daughter and granddaughter were diagnosed with malnutrition. Lynn was discharged the same day, but Holly, deeply traumatized, needed to be hospitalized for further treatment. Ted returned briefly to be with his wife and daughter, and his presence helped restore Lynn's smile and brought signs of recovery to Holly. I felt a profound sense of relief. As for the in-laws, they faced legal consequences after a thorough police investigation. The CEO had recorded their actions, which confirmed severe abuse. Since their home was rented, they were evicted, and a claim for $47,000 was filed, $30,000 for embezzlement and $17,000 for damages. Thanks to my connections with the CEO and reliable childhood friends, the in-laws will be required to repay the amount by working at a specific factory after their prison term. For now, the three of us are enjoying a peaceful time together, eagerly awaiting Ted's return. Once he's back, we plan to move in together at my place. I'm looking forward to a brighter future, supporting my daughter and son-in-law, and cherishing the joyful moments with my granddaughter.